A millionaire caught a little girl stealing food at the supermarket. Without hesitation, he paid for her entire cart, covering everything she needed. Curious, he followed the girl to a makeshift shack where she lived in miserable conditions. Horrified by what he saw, he made a decision that would forever change the future of her and her family. Hart stood at the entrance of Glendale supermarket, his polished leather shoes a stark contrast to the scuffed linoleum floor. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow on the aisles of packaged foods and household items. He glanced at his Rolex, 3:45 p.m. The board meeting had ended early, leaving him with an unexpected pocket of free time. On a whim, he had decided to stop by this neighborhood store, a place so far removed from his usual haunts that it felt like stepping into another world. As the automatic doors whooshed closed behind him, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of being out of place. His tailored suit and commanding presence drew curious glances from the other shoppers, mostly working-class individuals, picking up essentials after their shifts. He grabbed a basket, more out of habit than necessity, and began to wander the aisles aimlessly. The smell of freshly baked bread wafted through the air, triggering a long-buried memory. For a moment, Marcus was transported back to his childhood home, where the aroma of his mother's homemade loaves would fill their tiny apartment. He blinked, pushing the thought aside. That was a lifetime ago, a chapter he had closed and locked away. As he turned down the cereal aisle, a flash of movement caught his eye. A small figure darted between the shelves, quick and furtive. Marcus found himself following. Curiosity piqued. He rounded the corner just in time to see a young girl, no more than 7 or 8 years old, stuffing a loaf of bread into her worn backpack. The girl's eyes, wide and alert, scanned her surroundings as she zipped up the bag. Her clothes were clean but threadbare, her sneakers scuffed and a size too small. Despite her obvious nervousness, there was a determined set to her jaw that struck Marcus. He watched, frozen in place, as she slipped a carton of milk into her bag with practiced ease. For a moment, their eyes met. The girl's face was a mixture of defiance and fear, a look that tugged at something deep within Marcus. In that instant, he saw a reflection of his younger self, hungry, desperate, and fiercely protective of a mother who worked herself to the bone. Before he could react, the girl bolted towards the exit. The security alarm blared as she pushed through the doors, its shrill cry piercing the afternoon calm. Store employees shouted and gave chase, but the girl was quick. She darted across the parking lot and disappeared down a side street, leaving a wake of commotion behind her. Marcus stood rooted to the spot, his mind reeling. The scene he had just witnessed had cracked open a door he had long kept shut. Memories flooded in, of empty cupboards, of his mother's tired smile as she returned home from another double shift at the factory, of the gnawing hunger that had been his constant companion. He shook his head, trying to clear the unwelcome thoughts. This wasn't his world anymore. He was Marcus Reinhardt, CEO of Reinhardt Technologies, a man whose net worth was measured in billions. He had worked hard to leave that life behind, to build something greater than himself. And yet, as he absently replaced his basket and walked out of the store, Marcus couldn't shake the image of the girl's determined face. It haunted him, a ghost from a past he thought he had outrun. Back in his sleek black Audi, Marcus sat for a long moment, his hands resting on the steering wheel. The engine purred to life, but he made no move to leave the parking lot. Instead, he found himself staring at the street where the girl had disappeared, a strange mixture of emotions churning in his chest. For the first time in years, Marcus felt the weight of the choices he had made, the compromises, the ruthless climb to the top. He had told himself it was all worth it, that he was building a legacy. But now, faced with a stark reminder of where he had come from, he wasn't so sure. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the parking lot, Marcus made a decision. He couldn't simply drive away and pretend this hadn't happened. Something had shifted inside him, a long dormant part of his conscience awakening. With a determined set to his jaw, Marcus pulled out his phone. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the name he was looking for, Jack Myers, his head of security. If anyone could help him track down the girl, it was Jack. As the phone rang, Marcus took a deep breath. He didn't know exactly what he was going to do, but he knew one thing for certain. His life was about to change in ways he couldn't yet imagine. The girl's face, a mirror of his own past, had set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything he thought he knew about himself and the world he had built. The line clicked as Jack answered. "Mr. Reinhardt, is everything all right?" Marcus paused, then spoke with a resolve that surprised even him. "Jack, I need your help with something. It's important, and it needs to be discreet." As he began to explain the situation, Marcus felt a mix of trepidation and excitement. He was stepping off the carefully constructed path he had followed for so long, venturing into unknown territory. But deep down, he knew it was a journey he had to take. The sun dipped below the horizon and the streetlights flickered to life. In the gathering dusk, Marcus Reinhardt sat in his luxury car, plotting a course that would bridge the vast gulf between his past and his present. The unexpected encounter in a humble supermarket was about to change not just his life, but the lives of countless others in ways he could not yet foresee. The sleek, modern office of Reinhardt Technologies stood in stark contrast to the modest neighborhood Marcus had just left. As he strode through the glass doors, the familiar hum of productivity enveloped him. Employees nodded respectfully, their eyes following his purposeful gait. But tonight, Marcus barely noticed. His mind was still in that supermarket parking lot, replaying the scene of the little girl's daring escape. He reached his office and closed the door, shutting out the world he had built. For a moment he stood there, his hand still on the doorknob, feeling like a stranger in his own domain. Marcus moved to his desk, a massive slab of polished mahogany that dominated the room. He sank into his ergonomic chair, the plush leather a far cry from the hard wooden seats of his childhood. His eyes fell on a framed photo, the only personal item in the otherwise impersonal space. It showed a much younger Marcus, fresh out of college, standing proudly next to his mother. Her smile was tired but genuine, her eyes shining with pride. He picked up the frame, his fingers tracing the outline of his mother's face. Margaret Reinhardt had been a force of nature, a single mother who had worked herself to the bone to give her son a chance at a better life. The memory of her hunched over her sewing machine, fingers calloused and eyes straining in the dim light, hit him with unexpected force. A soft knock at the door jolted Marcus from his reverie. "Come in," he called, setting the photo back in its place. Jack Myers, head of security, entered the room. A former police detective, Jack had a quiet competence that Marcus had always appreciated. "Mr. Reinhardt," he nodded. "I have the information you requested." Marcus leaned forward, his earlier weariness forgotten. "What did you find?" Jack placed a tablet on the desk, its screen displaying grainy security footage. "We were able to track the girl's path from the supermarket." He swiped through several images, showing the child's desperate flight through back alleys and side streets. She ended up here. The final image showed a dilapidated house on a street that had seen better days. Paint peeled from its weathered siding, and the small yard was overgrown with weeds. It was a scene of quiet desperation, one that Marcus recognized all too well. "Do we know anything about her?" Marcus asked, his voice tight with an emotion he couldn't quite name. Jack nodded, his expression somber. "Her name is Lily Chen. She's 7 years old and lives with her mother, Sarah. No father in the picture." He paused, his next words careful. "Mr. Reinhardt, their situation, it's not good. Sarah lost her job as a seamstress 6 months ago due to illness. They've been struggling to make ends meet ever since." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. A seamstress, just like his mother had been. The parallels were almost too much to bear. He stood abruptly, moving to the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. Lights twinkled in the gathering darkness, a tapestry of lives being lived far below. "Jack," Marcus said, his back still to the room, "I need you to arrange something for me, discreetly." "Of course, sir." "What did you have in mind?" Marcus turned, his face set with determination. "I want to visit them tomorrow morning. Can you make that happen?" Jack's eyebrows rose slightly, but he nodded. "I'll take care of it, Mr. Reinhardt. Will you be needing security?" "No." Marcus shook his head. "This is personal. I'll go alone." After Jack left, Marcus found himself unable to focus on work. The image of Lily Chen, so small and yet so fierce, kept intruding on his thoughts. He thought of the risks she had taken, the desperation that must have driven her to such actions. It was a feeling he knew all too well. As the night deepened, Marcus made his way home to his penthouse apartment. The luxurious space, with its minimalist decor and breathtaking views, usually filled him with a sense of accomplishment. Tonight, it felt hollow. He walked to his bedroom, bypassing the kitchen despite not having eaten since lunch. Sleep eluded him as he tossed and turned, his mind a whirlwind of memories and half-formed plans. In the early hours of the morning, Marcus found himself standing in front of his closet. Row upon row of bespoke suits hung before him, each one a symbol of his success. But tonight, they felt like costumes, masks he had worn to distance himself from his past. With a sudden decisiveness, he reached past the suits to the far corner of his closet. There, hidden behind everything else, hung a simple flannel shirt and a pair of well-worn jeans. He had kept them as a reminder, though of what, he had never been quite sure. As he changed into the familiar clothes, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The fabric was soft against his skin, a comfort he had forgotten. He caught his reflection in the mirror and barely recognized himself. The polished CEO was gone, replaced by a man who looked remarkably like the boy he had once been. The sky was just beginning to lighten as Marcus left his building, nodding to the surprised doorman. He walked the quiet streets, retracing in reverse the journey he had made all those years ago. With each step, memories surfaced, of shared meals in tiny apartments, of his mother's laughter echoing in cramped spaces, of the fierce love that had sustained them through the hardest times. As the sun rose, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, Marcus found himself standing on the street where Lily Chen lived. The house looked even more run down in the harsh light of day, but there was life here too. A flutter of curtains in the window, the faint sound of a radio playing somewhere inside. Marcus took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. He didn't know exactly what he was going to say or do, but he knew he had to try. This wasn't just about Lily and her mother anymore. It was about facing the part of himself he had locked away for so long. As he walked up the cracked concrete path to the front door, Marcus felt a strange sense of coming home. The weight of his past and the promise of the future converged in this moment. Whatever happened next would change everything. His hand hovered over the doorbell for a moment before he pressed it. The faint chime echoed inside the house, followed by the sound of approaching footsteps. Marcus straightened, his heart pounding with an intensity he hadn't felt in years. The door creaked open, and he found himself face to face with Sarah Chen. Her eyes, tired but kind, widened in surprise at the sight of him. Behind her, peeking around her legs, was Lily, her small face a mixture of curiosity and wariness. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Marcus cleared his throat and said softly, "Hello, my name is Marcus Reinhardt. I'd like to help if you'll let me." As the words left his mouth, Marcus felt something shift inside him. It was as if a long-closed door had finally swung open, letting in the light of a new day. Whatever happened next, he knew there was no going back. The journey he had begun in that supermarket was about to take him places he had never imagined. Sarah Chen's eyes darted from Marcus's face to his outstretched hand. Confusion and wariness etched in the lines of her tired face. "I'm sorry, but do I know you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. How could he explain the chain of events that had led him to her doorstep? He took a deep breath, willing his voice to remain steady. "No, Mrs. Chen, you don't know me, but I saw your daughter yesterday, at the Glendale supermarket." At the mention of the supermarket, Lily's eyes widened, and she ducked behind her mother's legs. Sarah's posture stiffened, her hand tightening on the doorknob. "I don't understand," she said, her voice tinged with fear. "Are you from the store or the police?" Marcus quickly shook his head. No, nothing like that. I'm just someone who wants to help." He gestured to his casual attire. "I'm not here in any official capacity, I promise you, I mean no harm." Sarah's eyes narrowed, studying him intently. After a long moment, she seemed to come to a decision. She stepped back slightly, opening the door wider. "Perhaps you'd better come in, Mr. Reinhardt. We can talk inside." As Marcus crossed the threshold, the scent of worn fabric and old wood enveloped him. The interior of the house was clean but sparse, with mismatched furniture that had seen better days. It reminded him so much of his childhood home that for a moment he felt disoriented. Sarah led him to a small living room, gesturing for him to take a seat on a faded couch. Lily hovered in the doorway, her eyes never leaving Marcus. "Lily," Sarah said gently, Why don't you go to your room for a bit while I talk to Mr. Reinhardt? The girl hesitated, then nodded, disappearing down the hallway. The sound of a door closing echoed through the quiet house. Sarah lowered herself into an armchair across from Marcus, her movements slow and careful. Up close, Marcus could see the pallor of her skin and the slight tremor in her hands. Whatever illness had cost her, her job was clearly still affecting her. "Mr. Reinhardt," she began, her voice stronger now. "I appreciate your concern, but I have to ask, why are you here? What do you want?" Marcus leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "Mrs. Chen, I saw your daughter yesterday taking food from the store. I recognized something in her, a desperation I once knew all too well." Sarah's face crumpled, tears welling in her eyes. "I never wanted this for her," she whispered. "I've tried so hard, but since I lost my job, it's been impossible to make ends meet. Lily, she thinks she needs to take care of me." The words hung heavy in the air between them. Marcus felt a surge of emotion, empathy, sadness, and a fierce determination. "I understand more than you might think," he said softly. "My mother. She was a seamstress too. We struggled for years, barely keeping our heads above water." Sarah looked up, surprise replacing the fear in her eyes. "You?" Marcus nodded, a sad smile tugging at his lips. "Yes. I was that kid once, Mrs. Chen. The one who would do anything to help his mother, to put food on the table." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "That's why I'm here. I want to help in whatever way I can." Sarah's posture stiffened, pride warring with desperation on her face. "Mr. Reinhardt, I appreciate your kindness, but we're not looking for charity. I just need to get back on my feet, find another job." "It's not charity," Marcus interrupted gently. "It's an investment. In Lily's future, in your future." He leaned back, his eyes roaming the small room. "Tell me, Mrs. Chen, if you could have any job right now, what would it be?" The question seemed to catch Sarah off guard. She blinked, then said hesitantly, I've always dreamed of having my own tailoring business. Not just mending clothes, but designing them, creating something beautiful." A wistful smile crossed her face, quickly replaced by a look of resigned sadness. "But that's just a dream. The startup costs alone." Marcus felt a spark of excitement. What if it didn't have to be just a dream? What if you had the resources to make it happen? Sarah's eyes widened, a mix of hope and disbelief flickering across her face. "Mr. Reinhardt, I don't understand. Why would you do this for us? You don't even know us." Marcus stood, moving to the window. Outside, the neighborhood was coming to life. People heading to work, children walking to school. He turned back to Sarah, his expression serious. "Because 20 years ago, I was Lily, and my mother was you. Someone gave us a chance, an opportunity that changed our lives. I've never forgotten that kindness, and I've always known that one day I'd need to pay it forward." He walked back to the couch, sitting down again. "I'm in a position now where I can help, Mrs. Chen. Not just with money, but with connections, with opportunities. I can't change the whole world, but I can change your world if you'll let me." Sarah sat in stunned silence, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. After a long moment, she whispered, "I don't know what to say." Just then, a small voice came from the hallway. "Mom, are you okay?" They turned to see Lily standing in the doorway, her small face creased with worry. Sarah held out her arms and Lily ran to her, burying her face in her mother's lap. Marcus watched the scene, his heart aching with a mixture of pain and hope. He saw in Lily the fierce protectiveness he had once felt for his own mother, the weight of responsibility on such small shoulders. "Lily," he said softly, waiting until she looked up at him, "you've been very brave taking care of your mum, but you know what? It's okay to just be a kid sometimes, to play, to dream, to not worry so much." Lily's eyes widened, a glimmer of hope shining through her wary expression. "Really?" Marcus nodded, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Really, and I'm going to help make sure that happens. For both of you." Sarah stroked Lily's hair, her eyes meeting Marcus's over her daughter's head. The fear and suspicion were gone, replaced by a cautious hope. "Mr. Reinhardt, Marcus, I don't know how to thank you." Marcus shook his head. "No thanks necessary, just promise me you'll take this opportunity. That you'll let yourself dream again, for Lily's sake and your own." As he stood to leave, Marcus felt a tugging on his sleeve. He looked down to see Lily standing next to him, her small hand reaching for his. Without a word, he knelt down, bringing himself to her eye level. Lily studied his face for a long moment, then threw her arms around his neck in a fierce hug. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice muffled against his shoulder. Marcus hugged her back, feeling a lump form in his throat. As he stood, he saw Sarah watching them, tears streaming down her face. In that moment, he knew that his life had irrevocably changed. The wall he had built between his past and present had crumbled, and in its place a bridge was forming. As he walked out of the Chen's house and into the bright morning sunlight, Marcus felt lighter than he had in years. He had taken the first step on a new path, one that would challenge him in ways he couldn't yet imagine. But for the first time in a long time, he felt truly alive, truly purposeful. His phone buzzed in his pocket, probably his assistant, wondering where he was. The world of Reinhardt Technologies seemed a million miles away. Marcus knew he would have to return to that world, but it would be with new eyes, a new purpose. As he walked down the street, Marcus began to formulate a plan. It wasn't just about helping the Chens anymore. It was about creating lasting change, about bridging the gap between the world he came from and the world he now inhabited. The journey ahead would be challenging, filled with obstacles and resistance. But as Marcus thought of Lily's determined face and Sarah's cautious hope, he knew it was a journey worth taking. He had crossed a threshold, and there was no going back, only forward into a future bright with possibility. The gleaming headquarters of Reinhardt Technologies loomed before Marcus as he stepped out of his car. The building, a monument to his success, suddenly felt alien to him. He straightened his tie, a gesture more habitual than necessary, and strode through the revolving doors. As he crossed the lobby, Marcus noticed things he'd overlooked for years: the nervous energy of interns clutching coffee cups, the tired eyes of the cleaning staff finishing their night shift. Each face told a story, one he had once known intimately, but had forgotten in his climb to the top. "Good morning, Mr. Reinhardt," his assistant Jessica greeted him as he entered his office suite. "The board members are waiting in the conference room." Mr. Holloway seemed agitated. Marcus nodded, unsurprised. Richard Holloway, his longtime business partner and friend, had a nose for change, and he rarely liked it. "Thank you, Jessica. I'll be right there." As he approached the conference room, Marcus could hear the low murmur of voices. He paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. The plan he was about to propose would change everything, for the company, for himself, and hopefully for people like the Chens. He pushed open the door, and the room fell silent. A dozen pairs of eyes turned to him, a mix of curiosity and concern evident in their expressions. Richard Holloway, a man whose sharp business acumen was matched only by his impatience, spoke first. "Marcus, where have you been? We've been waiting for over an hour." Marcus moved to his seat at the head of the table, his posture relaxed but his eyes intense. "I apologize for the delay, but I assure you it was necessary. What I'm about to propose requires a new perspective, one I had to gain firsthand." He looked around the table, meeting each person's gaze. These were some of the brightest minds in the tech industry, people who had helped build Reinhardt Technologies into the powerhouse it was today. But today, he was about to challenge everything they thought they knew about the company's direction. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice steady and clear, "we've achieved incredible success over the past decade. Our innovations have changed the way the world communicates, works, and lives. But I believe it's time for us to redefine what success means for Reinhardt Technologies." He tapped a button, and a holographic display flickered to life above the table. Images of struggling communities, underfunded schools, and people facing daily hardships filled the air. "We've been so focused on pushing the boundaries of technology that we've lost sight of the people we're supposed to be helping. Today I'm proposing a new initiative, one that will use our resources and innovations to make a real difference in people's lives." Marcus outlined his plan, a comprehensive program that would funnel a significant portion of the company's profits into community development, education, and job creation in underserved areas. It was ambitious, potentially risky, and unlike anything Reinhardt Technologies had ever attempted. As he spoke, Marcus could see the reactions around the table. Some board members leaned forward, intrigued. Others frowned, clearly skeptical. Richard Holloway's face was a mask of disbelief. When Marcus finished, There was a moment of stunned silence. Then the room erupted in a cacophony of voices. "This is madness, Marcus," Richard exclaimed, his face flushed. "We're a tech company, not a charity. Our shareholders will revolt." "I disagree," countered Dr. Amelia Chen, head of R&D. "This could open up entirely new markets for us. Imagine the innovations we could develop by addressing real-world problems on this scale." The debate raged on, with passionate arguments on both sides. Marcus listened intently, addressing concerns and expanding on ideas. As the discussion progressed, he could see a shift happening. The initial shock was wearing off, replaced by a growing excitement, at least among some of the board members. After 2 hours of intense debate, Marcus called for a vote. The tension in the room was palpable as hands were raised. In the end, the initiative passed, but by a narrow margin. The company was about to embark on a new journey, one that would challenge them in ways they had never imagined. As the board members filed out, some congratulating Marcus while others shook their heads in concern, Richard Holloway lingered behind. "Marcus," he said, his voice low and serious, "I've known you for a long time. We've built this company together, but this feels like you're throwing it all away. What's really going on?" Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Rich, do you remember why we started this company? It wasn't just about making money or creating the next big thing. We wanted to make a difference." He walked to the window, looking out at the city sprawled below. "Yesterday, I saw a little girl steal food to feed her sick mother, and I realized that could have been me. That was me once upon a time. We have the power to change lives, Rich. Real lives, not just user experiences." Richard joined him at the window, his expression softening slightly. "I understand wanting to give back, Marcus, but this scale, it's unprecedented. The risks are worth taking," Marcus interrupted gently. "We've played it safe for too long. It's time to remember why we got into this in the first place." Richard was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I don't agree with this, Marcus, but I trust you. Just be careful. A lot of people are depending on us." As Richard left, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The hardest part was over, or so he thought. His phone buzzed with a message from Jessica. "Mr. Reinhardt, there's a Sarah Chen here to see you. She says it's urgent." Marcus frowned, a tendril of worry curling in his stomach. He had given Sarah his business card, but he hadn't expected to hear from her so soon. "Send her in," he replied. Moments later, Sarah Chen was ushered into his office. Her face was pale, her hands twisting nervously in front of her. "Mrs. Chen," Marcus greeted her, concern evident in his voice. "What's wrong?" Sarah took a shaky breath. "Mr. Reinhardt, I don't know how to say this. Lily's school called. She's been suspended. They found out about what she did at the supermarket." Marcus felt his heart sink. He had been so focused on the big picture, on changing company policy and launching grand initiatives, that he had overlooked the immediate needs of the very people who had inspired this change. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Chen," he said, moving around his desk to stand beside her. "This is my fault. I should have taken care of this right away." Sarah shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "No, Mr. Reinhardt, you've already done so much. I didn't know who else to turn to." In that moment, Marcus realized that true change, the kind that really mattered, wasn't just about big gestures and company-wide initiatives. It was about being there for people, in the small moments as well as the large ones. "Don't worry," he said, placing a comforting hand on Sarah's shoulder. "We'll fix this. Together." As he led Sarah to a seat and picked up his phone to make some calls, Marcus knew that the journey he had embarked on was going to be more challenging and more rewarding than he had ever imagined. The ripples of change were spreading, touching lives in ways both big and small. And this, he realized, was only the beginning. Marcus's sleek company car pulled up in front of Glendale Elementary School, a stark contrast to the aging brick building and chain-link fence that surrounded it. He stepped out, adjusting his tie nervously. It had been years since he'd set foot in a place like this, and the memories it evoked were bittersweet. Sarah Chen emerged from the passenger side, her face etched with worry. "Mr. Reinhardt, are you sure about this? You've already done so much." Marcus gave her a reassuring smile. "Please call me Marcus. And yes, I'm sure. We're in this together, remember." As they walked toward the main entrance, Marcus couldn't help but notice the peeling paint, the cracked sidewalk, the outdated playground equipment. It was a far cry from the private schools he usually associated with, and it stirred something in him, a mix of sadness and determination. The school's main office was small and cluttered, with a harried-looking secretary juggling phone calls and paperwork. She looked up as they entered, her eyes widening slightly at Marcus's impeccable suit. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Marcus stepped forward, his demeanor calm and authoritative. "Yes, we're here to see Principal Hoffman regarding Lily Chen." The secretary's expression softened slightly at the mention of Lily's name. "Oh yes, he's expecting you. Down the hall, third door on the right." As they walked down the worn linoleum hallway, Marcus could feel the weight of Sarah's anxiety beside him. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "It's going to be okay," he murmured. "Let me do the talking." Principal Hoffman's office was small but tidy, with walls lined with educational certifications and children's artwork. The man himself, a balding, middle-aged figure with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, stood to greet them. "Mrs. Chen," he nodded, then turned to Marcus with a questioning look. "Marcus Reinhardt," Marcus introduced himself, shaking the principal's hand firmly. "I'm here as a family friend and advocate for the Chens." Principal Hoffman's eyebrows rose slightly, but he gestured for them to sit. "I appreciate you coming in, but I'm afraid the situation with Lily is quite serious. Theft is not something we can overlook, regardless of the circumstances." Marcus leaned forward, his voice low and earnest. "Principal Hoffman, I understand the seriousness of the situation, but I also understand the circumstances that led to it. Lily wasn't acting out of malice or disregard for rules. She was trying to feed her family." The principal's expression softened slightly. "I sympathize, Mr. Reinhardt, I truly do, but we have policies in place for a reason. We can't make exceptions, even for difficult circumstances." Marcus nodded, acknowledging the point. "I agree that rules are important, but so is compassion, so is understanding. What if, instead of punishing Lily, we use this as an opportunity to help her and other students who might be in similar situations?" Principal Hoffman leaned back in his chair, intrigued. "What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Reinhardt?" Marcus outlined his idea, a comprehensive support program for students and families in need. It would include a food pantry, counseling services, and educational support. "Reinhardt Technologies is prepared to fully fund this program," he concluded. "All we ask is that you give Lily and other students like her a second chance." The principal was quiet for a long moment, his fingers steepled in front of him. Finally, he spoke. "It's an intriguing proposal, Mr. Reinhardt. But implementing something like this would require board approval, budget considerations." "I understand," Marcus replied smoothly, "and I'm prepared to speak to the board to provide whatever assurances they need. This isn't just about Lily. It's about creating real lasting change in this community." As the discussion continued, Sarah sat quietly, her eyes wide with disbelief. This man, who had been a stranger just days ago, was fighting for her daughter with a passion and determination she had never seen before. After what seemed like hours, but was in reality just 45 minutes, an agreement was reached. Lily's suspension would be lifted, contingent on her participation in a new community service program, the first step in the larger initiative Marcus had proposed. As they left the office, Sarah turned to Marcus, tears glistening in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. Marcus shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips. "No thanks necessary. This is just the beginning, Sarah. We're going to make things better, not just for Lily, but for everyone here." As they walked back to the car, Marcus's phone buzzed insistently. He glanced at it, his brow furrowing. "I'm sorry, Sarah, but I need to take this. It's my partner, Richard." He stepped away, his voice low as he answered. "Rich, what's going on?" Richard's voice was tense. "Marcus, where are you? The shareholders are in an uproar. Word of your new initiative has leaked and they're demanding answers. You need to get back here now." Marcus closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He had known there would be pushback, but he hadn't expected it so soon. "All right, I'm on my way. Set up a conference call with the major shareholders for this afternoon. We'll address their concerns head on." As he ended the call, Marcus turned back to Sarah, who was watching him with concern. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Marcus managed a reassuring smile. "Just some business matters to attend to. Nothing to worry about. He opened the car door for her. Let's get you home. I'm sure Lily is anxious to hear the good news. The drive back to the Chen's neighborhood was quiet, each lost in their own thoughts. As they pulled up in front of the small house, Marcus saw Lily peeking out from behind the curtains. Her face lit up when she saw her mother, and she ran out to meet them. Sarah enveloped her daughter in a tight hug, whispering reassurances. Marcus watched the scene, a bittersweet ache in his chest. This was why he was doing all this, he reminded himself. This was what really mattered. As Sarah and Lily turned to go inside, Lily broke away and ran up to Marcus. "Thank you," she said softly, wrapping her arms around his waist in a quick hug before darting back to her mother. Marcus stood there for a moment, overwhelmed by the simple gesture. Then, with a final wave to the Chens, he got back in his car and headed towards the Reinhardt Technologies headquarters. The drive back to the office was a stark transition. With each mile, Marcus could feel the weight of his responsibilities settling back onto his shoulders. He was no longer just Marcus, the man trying to help a family in need. He was Marcus Reinhardt, CEO, the man responsible for thousands of jobs, millions in shareholder value, and now a promise of change that he had to somehow make real. As the gleaming towers of the financial district came into view, Marcus steeled himself for the battles ahead. He knew that what he was trying to do wouldn't be easy. There would be resistance, skepticism, maybe even attempts to oust him from his own company. But the image of Lily's grateful face, of Sarah's tears of relief, strengthened his resolve. He pulled into his reserved parking space and took a moment to gather himself. The decisions he would make in the coming hours and days would shape not just his future, but the futures of countless others. It was a weighty responsibility, but one he now knew he had to bear. With a deep breath, Marcus stepped out of his car and walked towards the entrance of Reinhardt Technologies. He was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with a new sense of purpose and the unshakable belief that he was, at last, doing the right thing. The moment Marcus stepped into the lobby of Reinhardt Technologies, he could feel the tension in the air. Employees huddled in small groups, their conversations hushed but animated. As he walked towards the elevators, he noticed their furtive glances and the way conversations abruptly halted as he passed. Jessica was waiting for him as the elevator doors opened on the executive floor. Her usually calm demeanor was ruffled, and she fell into step beside him, talking rapidly. "Mr. Reinhardt, the shareholders are demanding an emergency meeting. The board is split, and the PR department is fielding calls from every major tech publication. They all want to know about the new initiative." Marcus nodded, his face a mask of calm, despite the storm brewing inside him. "Thank you, Jessica. Please set up the conference room for a video call with the major shareholders in 30 minutes. And get me Richard and the heads of PR and legal immediately." As Jessica hurried off to make the arrangements, Marcus entered his office and closed the door behind him. He took a moment to center himself, gazing out at the city skyline. The view that had once filled him with pride now seemed to mock him with its distance from the realities he had witnessed in the past few days. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Richard entered, followed by Samantha from PR and David from legal. Their faces were a mix of concern and curiosity. "Marcus," Richard began, his voice tense. "What the hell is going on? The shareholders are in an uproar. There are rumors flying around about us becoming some sort of charity organization. We need to contain this now." Marcus held up a hand, silencing his friend and partner. "I know this seems sudden to all of you, but I assure you it's not a decision I've made lightly. We're not becoming a charity, Richard. We're evolving." He outlined his vision, a company that not only created cutting-edge technology, but also actively worked to bridge the digital divide and create opportunities in underserved communities. As he spoke, he could see the skepticism on Richard's face slowly giving way to grudging interest. Samantha, the head of PR, leaned forward eagerly. "Mr. Reinhardt, if we frame this correctly, it could be a huge win for our public image. Tech companies are under fire for widening societal gaps. This could position us as industry leaders in corporate responsibility." David, the ever-cautious legal counsel, cleared his throat. "While I see the potential benefits, we need to be careful about how we structure this. There are regulatory considerations, potential conflicts of interest." Marcus nodded, acknowledging their points. "I understand the concerns, and I appreciate your insights. But I need you all to understand something. This isn't just a PR move or a corporate strategy. This is about real people, real lives that we have the power to change. He told them about Lily and Sarah, about the struggling school and the community in need. As he spoke, he could see a shift in the room. The corporate veneer began to crack, revealing the humans beneath, people who had once dreamed of changing the world through technology. We have an opportunity here, Marcus concluded, his voice passionate. An opportunity to redefine what a tech company can be, what it should be. Are you with me? There was a moment of silence. Then Richard spoke up. It won't be easy, Marcus. The shareholders, the market, they might not understand. Marcus smiled, a determined glint in his eye. Then we'll make them understand. Now let's prepare for this call. The next hour was a whirlwind of preparation. As Marcus and his team worked to craft their message, the office buzzed with a new energy. Employees who had overheard snippets of conversation or gotten wind of the new initiative through the grapevine were talking excitedly. There was a sense of purpose in the air that had been missing for far too long. When it was time for the video call, Marcus felt ready. As the faces of the major shareholders appeared on the screen, he could see their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice steady and confident, "thank you for joining us on such short notice. I understand you have concerns about the direction Reinhardt Technologies is taking. I'm here to address those concerns and to share with you a vision for the future. A future where our company doesn't just create technology, but uses it to create meaningful change in the world." For the next hour, Marcus laid out his plan. He spoke of the untapped markets in underserved communities, the potential for innovation born from solving real-world problems, and the long-term benefits of building a more equitable digital landscape. He faced tough questions and skepticism, but with each answer, he could see a shift happening. The shareholders began to engage, to ask questions not just about profit margins, but about impact and implementation. As the call ended, Marcus knew he had won a battle, but the war was far from over. There would be more challenges ahead, more resistance to overcome. But for now, he had bought himself time and, more importantly, the beginnings of support. As the day wound down, Marcus found himself once again standing at his office window, watching the city lights come to life in the gathering dusk. He felt drained but invigorated, like a runner at the end of a marathon who can finally see the finish line. A soft knock at the door roused him from his thoughts. It was Jessica holding a small package. "This just arrived for you, Mr. Reinhardt," she said, handing him the parcel. "It's from Glendale Elementary School." Curious, Marcus opened the package. Inside was a hand-drawn card covered in colorful scribbles and glitter. He opened it to find a message written in a child's uneven hand. "Dear Mr. Reinhardt, thank you for helping me and my mom. I'm sorry I took things from the store. I promise to do better. Maybe one day I can work at your company and help people too. Your friend Lily." Beneath Lily's message were dozens of signatures and thank you notes from other students, children who had heard about the new programs coming to their school and wanted to express their gratitude. Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. This was why he was fighting so hard, why he was willing to risk everything he had built. It wasn't about profit margins or market share. It was about Lily, and all the other Lilies out there who just needed a chance. He carefully placed the card on his desk, positioning it so he could see it from his chair. It would serve as a reminder of what truly mattered, a beacon to guide him through the challenges that lay ahead. As Marcus gathered his things to leave for the day, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The winds of change were blowing through Reinhardt Technologies, and though the journey ahead would be difficult, he knew in his heart that it was the right path. He stepped out of his office, nodding goodbye to Jessica. "Have a good night," he said. "And Jessica, thank you for everything today. I have a feeling we're going to be very busy from now on." As the elevator descended, Marcus allowed himself a small smile. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles to fight. But for tonight he would rest, content in the knowledge that he was at last using his power and influence to make a real difference in the world. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the playground of Glendale Elementary as Marcus stepped out of his car. The air was crisp, filled with the promise of a new day. He adjusted the strap of his leather briefcase, feeling oddly nervous. Today wasn't about boardrooms or shareholder meetings. It was about putting his words into action. Principal Hoffman was waiting for him at the entrance, a cautious smile on his face. "Mr. Reinhardt, good morning. I must admit I'm still a bit surprised by all of this." Marcus shook the principal's hand warmly. "Good morning, Principal Hoffman, and please call me Marcus. We're partners in this endeavor now." As they walked through the hallways, Marcus could feel the energy in the air. Students whispered and pointed as he passed, their eyes wide with curiosity. Teachers stood in their doorways, watching with a mixture of hope and skepticism. They entered the school's small auditorium where a group of teachers, parents, and community leaders had gathered. Marcus recognized Sarah Chen sitting in the front row, Lily fidgeting beside her. He gave them a small wave, earning a shy smile from Lily. Principal Hoffman stepped up to the podium. "Good morning, everyone. As you know, we're here today to discuss an exciting new initiative for our school and community. I'd like to introduce Mr. Marcus Reinhardt, CEO of Reinhardt Technologies, who has generously offered to partner with us in this endeavor." As Marcus took the stage, he felt the weight of all those eyes upon him. This wasn't his usual audience of tech entrepreneurs and investors. These were people whose lives could be directly impacted by his actions. He took a deep breath and began. "Thank you all for coming today. I'm not here to make grand promises or to pretend I have all the answers. I'm here because I believe that technology should be a force for good in the world, and that starts right here in our communities." Over the next hour, Marcus outlined his plan. He spoke of creating a state-of-the-art computer lab for the school, of offering coding classes and technology workshops for students and adults alike. He talked about internship programs that would provide a pathway to careers in tech, and about partnering with local businesses to create job opportunities. But more than that, he spoke of hope. Of the belief that with the right tools and support, every child in that school could achieve their dreams, regardless of their background or circumstances. As he concluded his presentation, the room erupted in applause. Marcus could see tears in some eyes and looks of cautious optimism on many faces. But he knew that applause and good intentions weren't enough. The real work was just beginning. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Marcus met with teachers, listening to their ideas and concerns. He spoke with parents, reassuring them that this wasn't just a corporate PR stunt, but a long-term commitment to their community. As the day wound down, Marcus found himself back in the auditorium, now empty save for Sarah and Lily Chen. Lily was exploring the stage, her eyes wide with wonder as she imagined herself speaking to a crowd. Sarah approached Marcus, her eyes brimming with emotion. "Mr. Reinhardt, Marcus, I don't know how to thank you for all of this. It's more than I ever could have imagined." Marcus smiled, watching Lily twirl on the stage. "There's no need for thanks, Sarah. This is just the beginning. But I have to ask, how would you like to be a part of it?" Sarah looked at him, confusion evident on her face. "What do you mean?" "We're going to need someone to coordinate these programs, someone who understands this community and its needs, someone the people here trust. I think you'd be perfect for the job." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. "Me? But I don't have any experience in something like this. I'm just a seamstress." Marcus shook his head, his voice gentle but firm. "You're not just anything, Sarah. You're a mother who would do anything for her child. You're a member of this community who understands its struggles and its strengths. That's exactly the kind of experience we need." As Sarah stood there, overwhelmed by the offer, Lily came bounding over. "Mom, did you see me? I was pretending to be a teacher, teaching everyone about computers." Sarah laughed, wiping away a tear. "That's wonderful, sweetheart, and you know what? Maybe someday you really will be teaching people about computers." Marcus knelt down to Lily's level. "How would you like to learn more about computers, Lily? We're going to be setting up some really cool classes here at your school." Lily's eyes lit up. "Really? Can I learn how to make games and robots?" Marcus chuckled. "Absolutely. You can learn to make games, robots, and so much more. The sky's the limit." As Marcus stood to leave, he felt a tug on his sleeve. He looked down to see Lily holding out a folded piece of paper. "I made this for you," she said shyly. Marcus unfolded the paper to find a crayon drawing. It showed a stick figure with a big smile, standing in front of what looked like a computer. Written above in wobbly letters were the words, "Thank you, Mr. Marcus." Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. He carefully folded the drawing and tucked it into his breast pocket, right next to his heart. "Thank you, Lily. I'll treasure this always." As he walked back to his car, Marcus felt a sense of lightness he hadn't experienced in years. The challenges ahead were still daunting, but for the first time in a long time he felt truly alive, truly purposeful. His phone buzzed, breaking the moment. It was Richard. "Marcus, we need to talk. The board is calling an emergency meeting. They're concerned about the direction we're taking." Marcus sighed, the weight of his responsibilities settling back onto his shoulders. "I understand, Rich. I'm on my way." As he drove back towards the gleaming towers of the financial district, Marcus glanced at the rearview mirror. He could still see Glendale Elementary in the distance, a beacon of hope in a sea of challenges. He thought of Lily's drawing, safely tucked away in his pocket. It wasn't just a child's scribble. It was a reminder of why he was fighting so hard, why he was willing to risk everything he had built. The road ahead would be difficult. There would be resistance, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But as Marcus steeled himself for the battles to come, he knew in his heart that he was on the right path. He was no longer just building a technology empire. He was planting seeds of hope, seeds that would grow into opportunities for people like Sarah and Lily and countless others like them. As the city skyline loomed before him, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them. For he now understood that true success wasn't measured in stock prices or market share, but in the lives he could change, the hope he could inspire, and the future he could help build. With Lily's drawing close to his heart and the memory of the day's events fresh in his mind, Marcus drove on, ready to fight for his vision of a better, more inclusive future. One community, one life at a time. The boardroom of Reinhardt Technologies was silent, tension thick in the air as Marcus concluded his presentation. He had just spent the last hour detailing his vision for the company's new direction, explaining the initiatives at Glendale Elementary and outlining plans for similar programs in other communities. Marcus looked around the table, taking in the varied expressions of the board members. Some, like Dr. Amelia Chen, were nodding with approval. Others, including several of the older, more conservative members, wore frowns of concern. Richard Holloway, Marcus's longtime friend and business partner, broke the silence. "Marcus, while your intentions are admirable, we have to consider the bottom line. How do you propose to fund these initiatives without significantly impacting our profit margins?" Marcus had anticipated this question. "By reallocating funds from our marketing budget and implementing some cost-saving measures in other departments, we can fund these programs without significantly impacting our overall profitability." He went on to explain how the initiatives could actually benefit the company in the long run, creating a positive public image, fostering innovation by solving real-world problems, and developing a new talent pipeline. He pulled up a new slide on the presentation screen. "I've worked with our finance team to create a detailed budget." Board member Elizabeth Thornton, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, leaned forward. "Mr. Reinhardt, while this all sounds very noble, I'm concerned about the message we're sending to our shareholders. They invested in a tech company, not a charity." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "With all due respect, Ms. Thornton, I believe we're sending exactly the right message. We're showing that Reinhardt Technologies is a company that looks to the future, that understands its role in shaping society, not just profiting from it." The debate continued, with board members raising concerns about everything from legal liabilities to the potential for negative press if the initiatives failed. Marcus addressed each concern calmly and thoroughly, his passion for the project evident in every word. As the meeting stretched into its third hour, Marcus could sense a shift in the room. The initial skepticism was giving way to cautious interest. Even some of the more resistant board members were beginning to see the potential benefits of the new direction. Finally, Dr. Chen spoke up. "I think what Mr. Reinhardt is proposing is not just admirable, but necessary. The tech industry has been under increasing scrutiny for its role in widening societal gaps. This initiative positions us as leaders in corporate responsibility. It's not just the right thing to do, it's smart business." Her words seemed to tip the balance. After a few more questions and a lengthy discussion about implementation and oversight, the board called for a vote. Marcus held his breath as the votes were tallied. In the end, the initiative passed, but by a narrow margin. He had won this battle, but he knew the war was far from over. As the board members filed out of the room, Richard lingered behind. "You did it, Marcus," he said, a mix of admiration and concern in his voice. "But you're walking a tightrope here. One misstep, and it could all come crashing down." Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of his friend's words. "I know, Rich, but I truly believe this is the right path for us. Will you stand with me on this?" Richard was quiet for a moment, then sighed. "I'm with you, Marcus. God help me, but I'm with you. Just be careful, okay?" As Marcus left the boardroom, he felt a mix of elation and trepidation. He had cleared a major hurdle, but the real work was just beginning. Over the next few weeks, Marcus threw himself into implementing the new initiatives. He divided his time between the corporate world and the community projects, often working late into the night to ensure everything ran smoothly. At Glendale Elementary, the changes were already becoming visible. The new computer lab was taking shape, with state-of-the-art equipment being installed. Sarah Chen, in her new role as community liaison, was thriving, organizing workshops and coordinating with local businesses to create internship opportunities. Marcus made a point of visiting the school regularly, not just to check on the progress of the initiatives, but to interact with the students and teachers. He found himself particularly looking forward to his conversations with Lily, whose enthusiasm for learning was infectious. One afternoon, as he was leaving the school after a particularly inspiring coding workshop, Marcus ran into Lily in the hallway. She was clutching a tablet, her face alight with excitement. "Mr. Marcus, look what I made," she exclaimed, holding up the tablet. On the screen was a simple but colorful game, with shapes moving across the display. Marcus knelt down to get a better look, genuinely impressed. "Wow, Lily. Did you code this yourself?" Lily nodded proudly. "Ms. Johnson taught us about loops and conditions in the workshop. I stayed after class to finish it. Do you want to play?" As Marcus tapped the screen, guiding a small circle through a maze of squares, he felt a warmth spread through his chest. This was what it was all about, giving children like Lily the tools and opportunities to explore their potential. "This is fantastic, Lily," he said, handing the tablet back to her. "You know, if you keep at it, you could be designing games for real someday." Lily's eyes widened. "Really? Could I work at your company?" Marcus chuckled. "If you work hard and keep learning, you could work anywhere you want. The sky's the limit." As he walked back to his car, Marcus's phone buzzed with a message from Jessica. "Urgent call from Richard. Please contact him ASAP." The warmth Marcus had felt moments ago was replaced by a cold knot of anxiety. He dialed Richard's number as he slid into the driver's seat. "Marcus, where are you?" Richard's voice was tense. "We've got a situation. TechCrunch just published an article questioning our new initiatives. They're suggesting it's all a PR stunt to distract from rumors about our Q3 earnings." Marcus gripped the steering wheel, his mind racing. "That's ridiculous. Our Q3 earnings are solid. Where are they getting this from?" "I don't know, but it's causing a stir. Our stock price is already taking a hit. We need to get ahead of this fast." As Marcus drove back to the office, his mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. He had known there would be challenges, but he hadn't expected them to come so soon or hit so hard. He thought of Lily's proud face as she showed him her game, of Sarah Chen finding new purpose in her role, of all the potential waiting to be unlocked in that small school. He couldn't let it all fall apart now. As the Reinhardt Technologies building came into view, Marcus steeled himself for the battle ahead. He had fought to get this far, and he wasn't about to back down now. Whatever it took, he would find a way to weather this storm and keep his promise to the community he had vowed to help. The road ahead would be difficult, but Marcus was more determined than ever. He had seen firsthand the impact his initiatives were having, and he knew in his heart that this was a fight worth having. With renewed resolve, he stepped out of his car and strode towards the building, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Reinhardt Technologies PR team was in full crisis mode when Marcus strode into the conference room. Faces lined with worry turned to him, hoping for guidance, for a plan to navigate the storm that had suddenly engulfed them. Marcus's face was a mask of calm determination as he addressed the room. "All right, let's break this down. What exactly are we dealing with?" Samantha, the head of PR, stepped forward. "The TechCrunch article has gone viral, Mr. Reinhardt. Other tech blogs are picking up the story, and mainstream media is starting to take notice. The narrative is that our community initiatives are a smokescreen to hide financial troubles. Marcus nodded, processing the information. And our stock price? Richard, who had been pacing by the window, turned to face the room. Down 12% since the article broke. If we don't turn this around quickly, it could get worse. The tension in the room was palpable. Marcus could feel the weight of every eye upon him, waiting for him to pull a rabbit out of a hat and make this all go away. But he knew there were no easy fixes, no magic words that could instantly repair the damage. "Okay," Marcus said, his voice steady and resolute. "Here's what we're going to do. First, we release our Q3 earnings report immediately. It's solid, and it will put to rest any rumors about financial troubles." He turned to Samantha. "I want a press release drafted within the hour. We're not going to be defensive. Instead, we're going to be transparent about our community initiatives. We'll invite journalists to visit Glendale Elementary to see firsthand what we're doing." "But sir," one of the junior PR associates piped up, "won't that just draw more attention to the situation?" Marcus smiled, a glint of determination in his eye. "Exactly. We're not going to hide from this. We're going to face it head on. Our initiatives aren't a PR stunt, they're a fundamental shift in how we do business, and we're going to make sure the world understands that." As the team sprang into action, Marcus pulled Richard aside. "Rich, I need you to do something for me. Reach out to our major shareholders personally, explain the situation, reassure them. Your relationships with them could be crucial right now." Richard nodded, but there was hesitation in his eyes. "Marcus, are you sure about this? Maybe we should consider scaling back the initiatives, just until this blows over." Marcus placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. "No, Rich, that's exactly what we can't do. If we back down now, it will only confirm their suspicions. We need to stand firm." As the day wore on, Marcus found himself juggling a whirlwind of tasks. He gave interviews, met with the board to reassure them, and worked with the PR team to craft their message. But even as he fought fires on all fronts, his mind kept drifting back to Glendale Elementary, to Lily and her proudly displayed game. It was past midnight when Marcus finally left the office. The city was quiet, the streets almost empty. As he drove, he found himself taking a detour, ending up in front of Glendale Elementary. The building was dark and silent, but to Marcus it represented everything he was fighting for. He sat in his car, staring at the school, and for the first time that day, allowed himself to feel the full weight of the situation. The doubt crept in, whispering questions he had been pushing aside all day. Was he doing the right thing? Was he jeopardizing everything he had built for a dream that might be too big, too idealistic? A tap on his window startled him out of his thoughts. He looked up to see Sarah Chen standing there, a confused expression on her face. Marcus rolled down the window. "Mr. Reinhardt? Is everything okay?" Sarah asked, concern evident in her voice. Marcus managed a small smile. "Sarah, what are you doing here so late?" "I was working late on some proposals for new programs," she explained. "But why are you here?" Marcus sighed, suddenly feeling very tired. I'm not sure. It's been a challenging day." Sarah's expression softened. "I heard about the article. Some of the teachers were talking about it." She paused, then added softly, "We're all behind you, you know. What you're doing here, it means everything to us." Her words hit Marcus like a physical force, cutting through the doubt and fear. He remembered why he had started down this path in the first place. It wasn't about stock prices or media narratives. It was about people, about hope. "Thank you, Sarah," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea how much I needed to hear that." Sarah smiled. "Why don't you come in for a cup of coffee? I was just about to make some, and it looks like you could use it." Marcus hesitated for a moment, then nodded. As they walked into the school, Sarah chattering about the new program she was planning, Marcus felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. This was why he was fighting so hard. This was what really mattered. In the small teacher's lounge, over cups of mediocre coffee, Marcus found himself opening up to Sarah about the challenges he was facing. She listened intently, offering words of encouragement and even a few practical suggestions. "You know," Sarah said as they were finishing their coffee, "when Lily was younger and things were really tough, I used to feel overwhelmed all the time. But then I realized I couldn't control everything. I could only do my best each day and have faith that it would be enough." Marcus nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. One day at a time, he murmured. Exactly, Sarah smiled. And you're not alone in this, Mr. Reinhardt. You have an entire community behind you now. As Marcus drove home in the early hours of the morning, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The challenges ahead were still daunting, but he no longer felt overwhelmed by them. He had been reminded of why he had started down this path, and he was more determined than ever to see it through. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. The release of the Q3 earnings report helped stabilize the stock price, and the open invitation to journalists started to shift the narrative. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. Articles began to appear, highlighting the positive impact of Reinhardt Technologies' initiatives. Photos of smiling students in the new computer lab at Glendale Elementary circulated on social media. Interviews with teachers and parents painted a picture of a company truly invested in making a difference. A week after the crisis began, Marcus stood in front of Glendale Elementary, surrounded by a group of journalists. Lily stood beside him, clutching her tablet, ready to show off her game to the cameras. As Marcus began to speak about the importance of investing in communities, of using technology to create opportunities for all, he felt a small hand slip into his. He looked down to see Lily smiling up at him, her eyes shining with trust and admiration. In that moment, Marcus knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he was on the right path. The storm had broken, and though there might be more on the horizon, he was ready to face them. For Lily, for Sarah, for all the lives they were touching, he would keep pushing forward, one day at a time. The autumn air was crisp as Marcus made his way through the bustling corridors of Glendale Elementary. 3 months had passed since the media storm, and the school was almost unrecognizable. The once drab walls were now adorned with colorful murals depicting scenes of science, technology, and imagination. The sound of excited chatter and the click-clack of keyboards filled the air. Marcus paused at the door of the new computer lab, watching as a group of students huddled around a 3D printer, their eyes wide with wonder as it slowly brought their design to life. Ms. Johnson, the enthusiastic young teacher who had taken charge of the tech programs, was guiding them through the process. "Mr. Reinhardt," a familiar voice called out. Marcus turned to see Lily bounding towards him, her face split in a wide grin. "I did it! I won the coding competition." Marcus knelt down to her level, his own smile matching hers. "That's fantastic, Lily. I knew you could do it. Tell me all about it." As Lily launched into an excited explanation of her winning project, a game that taught basic financial literacy to kids, Marcus couldn't help but marvel at the transformation he was witnessing, not just in Lily, but in the entire school and community. The initiatives that had started here at Glendale Elementary were spreading. 2 more schools in the district had implemented similar programs, with plans for further expansion in the works. Local businesses, inspired by Reinhardt Technologies' example, had started offering internships and mentorship programs. But it wasn't just the community that was changing. Reinhardt Technologies itself was evolving. The company's focus on social impact had attracted a new wave of talented, idealistic young employees. Innovation was flourishing as teams tackled real-world problems, leading to breakthroughs that were both profitable and socially beneficial. As Marcus made his way to the principal's office for their monthly check-in, he passed Sarah Chen in the hallway. She was deep in conversation with a group of parents, discussing plans for a community tech fair. Sarah had blossomed in her role, becoming a driving force behind many of the new initiatives. "Marcus," Principal Hoffman greeted him warmly as he entered the office. "I was just looking over the latest progress reports. The improvements in our students' test scores are remarkable." Marcus nodded, feeling a surge of pride. "That's wonderful to hear. How are the new STEM programs being received?" "Incredibly well," Hoffman replied, his eyes twinkling with excitement. "We've had to add extra classes to meet the demand. And it's not just the kids. We've had parents asking if we could offer adult education classes in the evenings." As they delved into the details of the school's progress and future plans, Marcus felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was what success truly looked like. Not just numbers on a balance sheet, but real, tangible improvements in people's lives. Their meeting was interrupted by a knock at the door. It was Jessica, Marcus's assistant, looking slightly flustered. "I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Reinhardt, but there's an urgent matter that requires your attention back at the office." Marcus frowned, concern creasing his brow. "What's going on, Jessica?" "It's the Maxwell contract, sir. There have been some complications." Marcus's heart sank. The Maxwell contract was a major deal, one that had been in negotiations for months. It was meant to be a showcase for Reinhardt Technologies' new socially conscious business model, combining cutting-edge tech with community development initiatives. He turned to Principal Hoffman apologetically. "I'm sorry, but I need to handle this. We'll continue our discussion next week." Hoffman nodded understandingly. "Of course, Marcus, go save the world, one contract at a time." As Marcus hurried out of the school, his mind was already racing, strategizing how to salvage the Maxwell deal. But as he passed the computer lab, he paused for a moment. Through the window, he could see Lily, bent over a keyboard, her face a mask of concentration as she worked on her latest project. The sight grounded him, reminding him of why he was fighting so hard. Whatever challenges lay ahead with the Maxwell contract, he would face them with the same determination and creativity that had brought him this far. Back at Reinhardt Technologies, Marcus found the boardroom in a state of controlled chaos. Richard was pacing back and forth, while other executives huddled over laptops, speaking urgently into phones. "What's the situation?" Marcus asked as he entered the room. Richard turned to him, his face grim. "Maxwell is threatening to pull out. They're saying our community development plans for their project are too ambitious, too costly. They want us to scale back significantly." Marcus felt a flicker of anger. The community development aspects of the project weren't just add-ons, they were integral to the entire concept. Scaling them back would undermine everything they were trying to achieve. "Have they given us an ultimatum?" Marcus asked, his mind already formulating potential solutions. "They want a revised proposal by the end of the week," Richard replied. "Marcus, maybe we should consider their demands. This contract could make or break our fiscal year." Marcus was quiet for a moment, weighing the options. The Maxwell contract was indeed crucial, both financially and as a proof of concept for their new business model. But compromising on their values now could set a dangerous precedent. "No," Marcus said finally, his voice firm. "We're not scaling back. In fact, we're going to double down." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Marcus in surprise. "Here's what we're going to do," Marcus continued, his voice gaining strength as he spoke. "We're going to revise the proposal, but not in the way Maxwell expects. We're going to show them how our community development initiatives will actually save them money in the long run. We'll demonstrate how a well-educated, well-supported local workforce will increase productivity and reduce turnover." He turned to Dr. Chen, who had been quietly observing from the corner. "Amelia, I want you to pull together a team. Gather all the data we have from Glendale and the other schools. Show Maxwell the tangible results we're achieving." As the team sprang into action, energized by Marcus's vision, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about one contract or one company. It was about changing the very nature of how business was done, about proving that profit and social responsibility could go hand in hand. The next few days were a blur of activity. Marcus worked around the clock, fine-tuning the proposal, rehearsing the presentation. He even made a trip back to Glendale Elementary, gathering testimonials from teachers, parents, and students about the impact of the programs. On the day of the presentation to Maxwell's board, Marcus stood before them, confident and passionate. He spoke not just with charts and figures, but with stories. Stories of lives changed, of communities uplifted, of a future where technology and compassion worked hand in hand. As he concluded his presentation, Marcus could see the shift in the room. The skepticism in the board members' eyes had given way to interest, even excitement. They peppered him with questions, not about costs and timelines, but about implementation and long-term impact. Hours later, as Marcus signed the revised contract, with all community development initiatives not just intact but expanded, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment. This wasn't just a business deal, it was a watershed moment, a validation of everything he had been fighting for. As he left the Maxwell offices, Marcus's phone buzzed with a message. It was a photo from Sarah Chen, showing Lily proudly holding up a certificate from her coding class. The caption read, "Look who's following in your footsteps." Marcus smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. In that moment, he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he was on the right path. The ripples of change he had set in motion were growing, spreading, becoming waves that would reshape not just his company, but the very world around them. With renewed determination, Marcus headed back to the office. There was still so much work to be done, so many lives to touch, so many possibilities to explore, and he was ready for all of it, one day, one challenge, one victory at a time. The soft glow of Marcus's desk lamp illuminated the piles of papers strewn across his office. It was well past midnight, but sleep eluded him as he pored over the latest reports from the community initiatives. The success of the Maxwell contract had opened doors, and now similar projects were springing up in cities across the country. A soft knock at the door roused him from his concentration. He looked up to see Richard standing in the doorway, a concerned expression on his face. "Marcus, you need to see this," Richard said, his voice unusually grave as he handed over a tablet. Marcus's eyes widened as he read the headline on the screen. "Tech Titans Troubled Past, the Dark Secret Behind Reinhardt's Rise." The article, set to be published in the morning by a major tech blog, delved into Marcus's childhood, revealing details about his father's criminal history and insinuating that some of Reinhardt Technologies' early funding might have come from questionable sources. "How did they get this information?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Richard shook his head. "I don't know. But it's bad, Marcus. Really bad. This could undo everything we've been working for." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He had worked so hard to distance himself from his past, to build something meaningful and positive. Now it felt like the ground was crumbling beneath his feet. "We need to get ahead of this," Richard continued. "Issue a statement, maybe even a full press conference. We can spin this. Talk about overcoming adversity." "No," Marcus interrupted, his voice firm. "No spin, no deflection." He stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the city. "It's time I faced this head-on." The next morning, as the article spread like wildfire across social media and news outlets, Marcus called an emergency meeting with his executive team and PR department. The room was tense, filled with worried faces and hushed conversations. "I know you're all concerned," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the turmoil he felt inside. "And you have every right to be. But I want to be clear about how we're going to handle this." He outlined his plan, a frank, open discussion of his past, including details that hadn't been in the article. No sanitized version, no attempts to downplay the struggles and mistakes, just the truth in all its complicated, messy reality. "But sir," Samantha from PR interjected, "this could seriously damage our reputation, especially with the community initiatives. Parents might not want their children involved with a company whose founder has such a background." Marcus nodded, acknowledging the risk. "You're right, Samantha. It could. But I believe that trying to hide from this or sugarcoat it would be far more damaging in the long run. The people we're trying to help, they know about struggle, about making mistakes and trying to overcome them. If we're honest, if we show that change is possible, that could be more powerful than any PR campaign." As the team dispersed to prepare for the impending media storm, Marcus felt a mix of fear and relief. He had carried the weight of his past for so long, always afraid it would come to light. Now that it had, there was a strange sense of freedom in facing it head-on. His next stop was Glendale Elementary. He owed it to Sarah, to Principal Hoffman, to all the people who had put their trust in him, to tell them the truth before they heard it from the media. The conversation was difficult, filled with shocked silences and probing questions. But as Marcus shared his story, of a childhood marked by poverty and his father's poor choices, of his own youthful mistakes and his struggle to break free from that cycle, he saw something shift in their eyes. It wasn't pity or disgust, but a deeper understanding. "You know," Sarah said softly after Marcus had finished speaking, "when you first came here offering to help, I couldn't understand why. It seemed too good to be true. But now I get it. You're not just some rich guy trying to feel good about himself. You're one of us. You made it out, and now you're reaching back to help others do the same." Principal Hoffman nodded in agreement. "Marcus, I won't pretend this isn't shocking, but I think Sarah's right. Your past, it doesn't negate the good you're doing now. If anything, it makes it more meaningful." Their support buoyed Marcus's spirit, giving him strength for the challenges that lay ahead. But there was one more conversation he needed to have, one that filled him with more dread than any media confrontation. He found Lily in the computer lab, working on her latest coding project. Her face lit up when she saw him, but quickly fell as she noticed his serious expression. "Lily," Marcus said gently, kneeling down to her level. "There's something important I need to talk to you about." In simple terms, careful not to share more than was appropriate for her age, Marcus explained about the article, about his father's mistakes and his own difficult childhood. Lily listened intently, her young face serious. When Marcus finished, Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, she threw her arms around him in a tight hug. "It's okay, Mr. Marcus," she said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "My dad made bad choices too, but that doesn't make you bad. You're good. You help people." Marcus felt a lump form in his throat, overwhelmed by the simple wisdom and forgiveness of a child. As he hugged Lily back, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. This understanding, this ability to connect with and help people because of his past, not in spite of it, this was why he had started down this path in the first place. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of media appearances, press conferences, and difficult conversations. Marcus shared his story openly and honestly, refusing to shy away from the hard truths of his past. To his surprise, the response was largely positive. People were moved by his journey, inspired by his commitment to using his success to help others avoid the struggles he had faced. There were critics, of course. Some called for his resignation, arguing that his past made him unfit to lead a major corporation. But for every negative voice, there seemed to be many more in support. Letters and emails poured in from people who saw themselves in Marcus's story, people who had overcome difficult backgrounds, who were struggling to break cycles of poverty or crime. Many expressed how his openness had given them hope, had shown them that a troubled past didn't have to define one's future. As the media storm began to die down, Marcus found himself back at Glendale Elementary, this time for a parent-teacher night. He had been unsure about attending, worried that his presence might be a distraction or cause discomfort. But as he walked through the doors, he was met with warm smiles and words of encouragement. Parents approached him, some sharing their own stories of struggle and redemption. Teachers talked excitedly about the positive changes they were seeing in their students, and everywhere he looked, Marcus saw evidence of the impact their initiatives were having. From the new tech equipment in the classrooms to the proud displays of student projects. As the evening wound down, Marcus found a quiet moment to slip into the computer lab. He sat down at one of the workstations, running his hand over the smooth surface of the desk. This was where it had all started, with a chance encounter and a decision to make a difference. The door creaked open and Marcus looked up to see Lily peeking in. "Mr. Marcus? Mom says it's time to go, but I wanted to show you something first." She hurried over, pulling up a program on the computer. It was a simple game, but as Marcus watched her demonstrate, he realized it was designed to teach kids about making good choices and the consequences of actions. "I made it for kids who might be going through hard times," Lily explained, her eyes shining with pride. "To show them that they can choose to do good things no matter what." Marcus felt a swell of emotion as he looked at Lily's creation. In that moment, he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, no matter how his past might continue to haunt him, he was on the right path. The shadows of the past would always be there, but they no longer had the power to define him. Instead, they had become the driving force behind his mission to create a brighter future for others. With a smile, Marcus pulled Lily into a hug. "It's perfect, Lily," he said softly. "Absolutely perfect." The boardroom of Reinhardt Technologies buzzed with tension as Marcus concluded his presentation. He had just laid out an ambitious plan to expand their community initiatives nationwide, leveraging the success and lessons learned from Glendale Elementary and the Maxwell Project. "This is the future of our company," Marcus said, his voice filled with passion. "Not just creating cutting-edge technology, but using that technology to create real, lasting change in communities across the country." The room was silent for a moment as the board members absorbed the scale of what Marcus was proposing. It was Elizabeth Thornton who spoke first, her voice sharp with skepticism. "Mr. Reinhardt, while your personal story has certainly garnered public sympathy, I'm concerned about the financial implications of this plan. We're a technology company, not a charity." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "With all due respect, Ms. Thornton, this isn't charity. It's smart business. Our community initiatives have led to groundbreaking innovations, attracted top talent, and opened up new markets. The Maxwell contract is proof that there's demand for this approach. Richard chimed in, his tone cautious but supportive. Marcus is right. Our stock prices have actually increased since we implemented these programs. Investors are seeing the long-term potential. The debate raged on, with board members arguing passionately on both sides. Marcus could see the division forming between those who believed in the new direction and those who wanted to stick to a more traditional corporate model. As the meeting adjourned without a clear resolution, Marcus felt a growing unease. He had won this battle before, but the opposition was becoming more organized, more determined. He knew the fight was far from over. Outside the boardroom, Richard pulled Marcus aside. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low. "Not here. Meet me at the usual place in an hour." An hour later, Marcus found himself in a quiet corner of their favorite coffee shop, away from the prying eyes and ears of the corporate world. Richard's face was grim as he stirred his untouched coffee. "Marcus, there's something you need to know," Richard began, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thornton and some of the other board members, they're planning something. I've heard rumors of secret meetings, discussions about a potential vote of no confidence." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "They want to oust me?" Richard nodded slowly. "They think you've lost focus, that you're putting your personal mission ahead of the company's interests. And after the revelations about your past, well, some of them are using that as ammunition." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He had known there would be resistance, but he hadn't expected it to come to this. "What do you think, Rich? Be honest with me." "Have I lost my way?" Richard was quiet for a long moment, considering his words carefully. I think you're trying to do something incredible, Marcus. Something that could change not just our company, but the entire industry. But it's risky, and not everyone has your vision." Marcus nodded, grateful for his friend's honesty. "So what do we do?" "We fight," Richard said, a glint of determination in his eye. "But we need to be smart about it. We need to show the board, the shareholders, everyone, that this isn't just some idealistic crusade. It's the future of our company." As they strategized late into the night, Marcus felt a mix of determination and apprehension. He knew the next few weeks would be crucial, not just for his position as CEO, but for the entire vision he had been working towards. The next morning, Marcus made an unexpected detour on his way to the office. He found himself once again at Glendale Elementary, drawn there as if by some invisible force. As he walked through the halls, now vibrant with student artwork and tech projects, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was what he was fighting for. Not just profit margins or stock prices, but real, tangible change in people's lives. He paused at the door of the computer lab, watching as Lily guided a younger student through a coding exercise. Her patience and enthusiasm reminded Marcus of himself at that age, filled with dreams and potential. "Mr. Marcus," Lily exclaimed, noticing him in the doorway, "come see what we're working on." As Lily excitedly explained their latest project, an app to help students track and reduce their carbon footprint, Marcus felt a warmth spread through his chest. This was the future he envisioned, a generation of young people using technology not just for personal gain, but to make the world a better place. "Lily," Marcus said, kneeling down to her level, "I want you to know something. No matter what happens, no matter what you might hear, I promise you that I will always fight to keep these programs going. For you and for every kid who deserves a chance to follow their dreams." Lily's face grew serious, sensing the weight in Marcus's words. "Is something wrong, Mr. Marcus?" Marcus managed to smile. "Nothing for you to worry about. Just some grown-up stuff. But I want you to remember, every line of code you write, every problem you solve, you're making a difference. Don't ever forget that." As Marcus left the school, he felt a new resolve settling over him. The fight ahead would be difficult, perhaps the most challenging of his career, but seeing the impact of their work firsthand had reinforced his conviction that it was a fight worth having. Back at Reinhardt Technologies, Marcus threw himself into preparation. He gathered data on the financial benefits of their initiatives, compiled testimonials from employees and community members, and worked on refining his vision for the company's future. Days turned into weeks, and Marcus could feel the tension building. Whispered conversations would stop when he entered a room. Board members who had once been allies now regarded him with cool professionalism. Through it all, Marcus pressed on, refusing to be deterred from his mission. It was Sarah Chen who provided an unexpected source of support during this time. Having heard rumors of the corporate turmoil, she reached out to Marcus, offering encouragement and a perspective from outside the corporate bubble. "You know," she said during one of their conversations, "when you first came to us with your ideas, I thought it was too good to be true. But you've shown us that change is possible, that big companies can do good in the world. Don't let them take that away." Her words bolstered Marcus's spirits, reminding him of the real-world impact of his vision. It wasn't just about corporate strategy or personal legacy. It was about creating a model for how business could be a force for positive change in the world. As the date of the crucial board meeting approached, Marcus felt like he was standing on the edge of a precipice. Everything he had worked for, everything he believed in, was hanging in the balance. The gathering storm that had been brewing for months was about to break. The night before the meeting, Marcus found himself once again working late in his office. As he reviewed his notes one last time, his eyes fell on Lily's drawing, still pinned to his bulletin board. The childish scrawl, "Thank you for believing in us," hit him with renewed force. In that moment, Marcus made a decision. Whatever happened tomorrow, he would stand firm in his convictions. He would fight not just for his vision of the company, but for Lily, for Sarah, for all the lives they had touched and could yet touch. As he finally left the office, the city quiet in the late-night hours, Marcus felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. The storm was coming, but he was ready to face it. For he knew that beyond the darkness and the turbulence, there was a brighter future waiting, a future worth fighting for. The morning of the board meeting dawned grey and overcast, as if the weather itself was reflecting the tension that hung over Reinhardt Technologies. Marcus stood at the window of his office, watching the city slowly come to life below. He felt oddly calm, the nervous energy of the past weeks replaced by a steely resolve. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Richard, his face a mask of concern. "They're ready for you, Marcus." Marcus nodded, straightening his tie. "Let's do this." The boardroom fell silent as Marcus entered, all eyes turning to him. He could feel the weight of their gazes, some supportive, others skeptical, a few openly hostile. At the head of the table sat Elizabeth Thornton, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Reinhardt," she began, her voice cool and professional. "Before we begin, I want to make it clear that this meeting is not a trial. It is, however, a critical evaluation of the direction our company is taking under your leadership." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "I understand, Miss Thornton, and I welcome the opportunity to discuss our path forward." For the next 2 hours, Marcus defended his vision with passion and precision. He presented data showing the positive impact of their community initiatives, not just in terms of public relations, but in driving innovation and opening new markets. He shared stories of lives changed and communities transformed, connecting these personal narratives to the company's bottom line. "We're not just a technology company," Marcus argued, his voice rising with conviction. "We're a company that uses technology to shape the future. And that future isn't just about faster processors or sleeker devices. It's about creating a world where technology empowers everyone, where innovation serves the greater good." The questions from the board were relentless, probing every aspect of Marcus's strategy. They challenged his financial projections, questioned the scalability of the community programs, and raised concerns about the company's core identity. Through it all, Marcus stood firm. He countered each argument with data and reasoned responses, his deep belief in the mission shining through every word. As the meeting stretched into its third hour, Marcus could sense a shift in the room. Some board members who had been skeptical were now nodding along with his points. Others, however, remained unconvinced, their faces set in frowns of disapproval. Finally, Elizabeth Thornton held up a hand, silencing the debate. "I think we've heard enough. Mr. Reinhardt, would you please step outside while the board deliberates?" The next hour was the longest of Marcus's life. He paced the hallway outside the boardroom, his mind replaying every moment of the meeting, searching for things he could have said differently, arguments he could have made more strongly. When Richard finally emerged to call him back in, Marcus couldn't read his expression. He steeled himself for whatever was to come. Elizabeth Thornton's voice was grave as she delivered the board's decision. "Mr. Reinhardt, after careful consideration, the board has decided..." But before she could finish, the door burst open. It was Jessica, Marcus's assistant, her face flushed with urgency. "I'm so sorry to interrupt," she gasped, "but you need to see this." She handed Marcus a tablet. On the screen was a breaking news story. A major tech company had just announced a massive data breach, exposing the personal information of millions of users. As Marcus scanned the article, his eyes widened. The breach was eerily similar to a vulnerability that Reinhardt Technologies had discovered and patched in their own systems just months ago, as a direct result of their work with underprivileged students in the community programs. Marcus looked up, meeting the shocked gazes of the board members. "This," he said, his voice steady, "this is why our approach matters. Our community initiatives aren't just about doing good. They're about seeing problems from new perspectives, about fostering innovation that makes a real difference." He turned to Elizabeth Thornton. "Ms. Thornton, I know you are about to deliver the board's decision, but in light of this, I'm asking you to reconsider. Give me 6 more months. Let me show you that our vision isn't just idealistic. It's the key to our company's future." The boardroom erupted in heated discussion. Marcus could see the division among the members, some arguing passionately in his favor, others still hesitant. Finally, Elizabeth Thornton raised her hand for silence. "Mr. Reinhardt," she said, her voice carrying a note of grudging respect, "you've given us a lot to think about. The board will need to reassess in light of this new information. We'll reconvene in 1 week to make our final decision." As Marcus left the boardroom, he felt a mix of relief and anticipation. He had bought himself some time, but the fight was far from over. He knew the next week would be crucial in determining not just his future, but the future of everything he had worked for. Over the next 7 days, Marcus threw himself into action. He organized visits for board members to see the community programs firsthand. He brought in students like Lily to demonstrate their projects, showing the board the real-world impact of their initiatives. He compiled more data, refined his arguments, and worked tirelessly to address every concern that had been raised. On the eve of the final board meeting, Marcus found himself once again at Glendale Elementary. As he walked through the halls, now humming with the energy of after-school programs, he felt a profound sense of purpose. He paused at the door of the computer lab, watching as Sarah Chen led a group of parents through a basic coding workshop. The room was filled with laughter and excited chatter as adults and children alike discovered the joy of creation through technology. Sarah noticed him and excused herself, coming over with a warm smile. "Marcus, we didn't expect to see you today. Is everything okay?" Marcus nodded, feeling a lump form in his throat. "Yeah, everything's fine. I needed to see this, to remind myself what we're fighting for." Sarah's expression softened with understanding. She placed a hand on his arm, her voice gentle but firm. "Whatever happens, Marcus, know that you've already changed lives here. You've given us hope, shown us possibilities we never dreamed of. That's something no board vote can take away." As Marcus drove home that night, Sarah's words echoed in his mind. He realized that regardless of the board's decision, the work they had started here would continue. The seeds of change had been planted, and they would grow with or without Reinhardt Technologies' backing. The next morning, as Marcus prepared to face the board one last time, he felt a strange sense of peace. He had done everything he could. He had fought with every ounce of his being for what he believed in. Whatever the outcome, he knew he could face himself in the mirror, knowing he had stayed true to his values. As he stepped into the boardroom, Marcus carried with him not just his arguments and data, but the hopes and dreams of Sarah, Lily, and countless others whose lives had been touched by their work. He was ready for whatever came next, secure in the knowledge that he was fighting for something greater than himself, greater even than the company he had built. The future hung in the balance as Elizabeth Thornton called the meeting to order. But whatever the board decided, Marcus knew that the real victory had already been won. In the lives changed, the minds opened, and the future brightened for so many. With that thought bolstering his spirit, he faced the board ready for the final challenge. The tension in the boardroom was palpable as Elizabeth Thornton cleared her throat, preparing to deliver the board's decision. Marcus sat straight-backed in his chair, his face a mask of calm determination, though his heart raced beneath his crisp white shirt. "Mr. Reinhardt," Elizabeth began, her voice measured and formal. After careful consideration and in light of recent events, the board has reached a decision regarding the future direction of Reinhardt Technologies. She paused, her eyes sweeping across the room before settling back on Marcus. By a narrow margin, we have decided to continue supporting your vision for the company, including the community initiatives, for a probationary period of 1 year. A collective exhale seemed to ripple through the room. Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over him, but he knew this was just the beginning of a new challenge. Elizabeth continued, her tone growing sharper. However, this support comes with conditions. We expect to see concrete results, not just in terms of social impact, but in measurable business growth and technological innovation. At the end of this period, we will reassess the situation. If the outcomes don't meet our expectations, significant changes will be necessary. Marcus nodded, accepting the challenge. I understand, Miss Thornton. Thank you for this opportunity. I assure you we will exceed your expectations. As the meeting adjourned, board members filed out of the room, some offering Marcus cautious congratulations, others maintaining a cool distance. Richard lingered behind, a mix of relief and concern on his face. You did it, Marcus, he said, clapping his friend on the shoulder. But this is just the beginning. We've got our work cut out for us. Marcus nodded, his mind already racing with plans. We do, Rich, but we've got something they don't expect, a whole community ready to help us succeed. Over the next few months, Reinhardt Technologies underwent a transformation. The energy that had been focused on internal struggles was now directed outward, towards innovation and growth. Marcus led the charge, working tirelessly to integrate the community initiatives with the company's core business. One of the first major breakthroughs came from an unexpected source. A group of high school students from Glendale Elementary, mentored by Reinhardt engineers, developed a revolutionary algorithm for optimizing energy consumption in smart homes. The technology not only led to a lucrative new product line, but also garnered positive press for its environmental impact. Sarah Chen's role expanded as she became the bridge between the company and the community. Her insights proved invaluable in identifying real-world problems that Reinhardt's technology could solve. Under her guidance, a network of community innovation hubs sprang up across the city, each becoming a hotbed of ideas and talent. Lily, now leading her school's coding club, became an unofficial mascot for the company's youth programs. Her infectious enthusiasm and genuine talent inspired not only her peers but also the Reinhardt employees who mentored her. As word of Reinhardt's unique approach spread, the company began attracting top talent from across the tech industry. Engineers and developers were drawn by the opportunity to work on projects that had a tangible, positive impact on communities. 6 months into the probationary period, Marcus stood on a stage at a major tech conference, unveiling Reinhardt's latest innovation, a suite of accessible, low-cost educational technology tools developed in collaboration with teachers and students from underserved schools. This isn't just about creating new products, Marcus told the rapt audience. It's about reimagining the role of technology in our society. We're not just building gadgets, we're building bridges between innovation and social responsibility, between corporate success and community empowerment. The response was overwhelming. Orders poured in from school districts across the country. Tech critics hailed Reinhardt as a pioneer in socially responsible innovation. The company's stock price soared, but with success came new challenges. As Reinhardt's profile grew, so did the scrutiny. Competitors began to take notice, some attempting to replicate their community-focused model, others spreading rumors and casting doubts on the company's motives. One crisp autumn morning, Marcus arrived at the office to find Richard waiting for him, a grave expression on his face. "We've got a problem," Richard said, ushering Marcus into his office. A major tech blog had published an exposé, alleging that Reinhardt was exploiting the communities it claimed to help, using them as cheap labor for research and development. The article painted Marcus as a manipulative figure, using his past and his charisma to take advantage of vulnerable populations. Marcus felt as if the ground had dropped out from under him. He had expected challenges, but this attack struck at the very heart of everything he believed in, everything he had worked for. As the PR team scrambled to respond and the board demanded answers, Marcus found himself at a crossroads. He could hunker down, issue denials, fight the allegations with lawyers and spin doctors, or he could take a different path, one that aligned with the principles of transparency and community engagement that he had championed. After a sleepless night of soul-searching, Marcus made his decision. He called for a town hall meeting not just for Reinhardt employees, but open to the public and the press. He would address the allegations head-on, in full view of the world. The day of the town hall arrived, and the company's largest auditorium was packed to capacity. Marcus could see familiar faces: Sarah, Principal Hoffman, even Lily and her classmates seated in the front row. He also spotted journalists, competitors, and more than a few skeptical community members. As Marcus took the stage, a hush fell over the crowd. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of all the lives that had been changed, all the good that had been done. "I stand before you today," he began, his voice steady and clear, "not to deny the allegations that have been made, but to address them openly and honestly, because the truth is, there is some validity to the concerns raised." A murmur rippled through the audience. Marcus pressed on. "We have indeed benefited from the ideas and labor of the communities we work with. Our successes are built on their creativity, their insights, their hard work. But where we have fallen short is in fully recognizing and compensating that contribution." He went on to outline a new plan, one that would give the communities a real stake in the company's success. Stock options for students who contributed to patents, profit sharing for community innovation hubs, a seat on the board for a community representative. "We started this journey with the belief that business could be a force for good in the world," Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger. "But along the way we lost sight of what that truly means. It's not about a company benevolently helping a community. It's about forging a genuine partnership where everyone's contribution is valued and everyone shares in the success." As Marcus concluded his speech, laying out a vision for a new kind of corporate structure, one that truly integrated community and company, the auditorium erupted in applause. He saw tears in Sarah's eyes, pride on Richard's face, and a dawning excitement in the expressions of the journalists furiously taking notes. In that moment, Marcus realized that what had seemed like a crisis had become an opportunity to take their mission to the next level, to create a model that could transform not just Reinhardt Technologies, but the entire corporate world. As he stepped off the stage, surrounded by a buzz of excited conversation, Marcus felt a small hand slip into his. He looked down to see Lily, her eyes shining with admiration. "You did it, Mr. Marcus," she said softly. "You turned a big problem into an even bigger solution." Marcus squeezed her hand, a lump forming in his throat. "We did it, Lily," he corrected gently. "All of us. Together. And we're just getting started." As the crowd swirled around them, full of energy and possibility, Marcus knew that they had reached a tipping point. The road ahead would not be easy, but they had found a new way forward, one that held the promise of a truly inclusive and transformative future. The months following Marcus's bold town hall meeting were a whirlwind of activity and transformation. Reinhardt Technologies found itself at the center of a global conversation about corporate responsibility and community engagement. The company's stock price, which had initially dipped in the wake of the allegations, rebounded strongly as investors recognized the potential of the new model. Marcus sat in his office, reviewing the latest reports on the company's progress. The numbers were impressive, but it was the stories behind them that truly moved him. He picked up a letter from his desk, one of hundreds that had poured in from around the world. It was from a young girl in a rural community in India, thanking Reinhardt for the educational technology that had opened up new worlds for her and her classmates. A knock at the door interrupted his reverie. It was Richard, looking both excited and slightly overwhelmed. "Marcus, you're not going to believe this. We've just been contacted by the World Economic Forum. They want you to give a keynote address at their annual meeting in Davos." Marcus leaned back in his chair, a mix of surprise and satisfaction on his face. "Davos? That's unexpected." Richard nodded, a grin spreading across his face. "They're calling our model compassionate capitalism. They want you to speak about how companies can drive innovation through community engagement." As the implications sank in, Marcus felt a surge of excitement. This was an opportunity to take their message to a global stage, to influence some of the most powerful business leaders in the world. "There's more," Richard continued. Several major tech companies have reached out about potentially adopting elements of our community partnership model, and a group of business schools wants to develop case studies on Reinhardt's approach. Marcus stood up, moving to the window that overlooked the city. He could see the Reinhardt Technologies logo reflected in the glass, a symbol of how far they had come. But his eyes were drawn to the community beyond, to the schools and neighborhoods where their work was making a real difference. "You know, Rich," he said softly, "when we started down this path, I never imagined it would lead us here. I just wanted to help one community, to give kids like Lily a chance." Richard joined him at the window. "And now look at what you've started. It's not just about Reinhardt anymore, Marcus. You're changing the way the whole world thinks about business and social responsibility." As they stood there, Marcus's phone buzzed with a message. It was from Sarah Chen, asking if he was still planning to attend the Community Innovation Fair at Glendale Elementary that afternoon. "The Davos speech can wait," Marcus said, grabbing his jacket. "There's somewhere else I need to be right now." An hour later, Marcus found himself in the bustling gymnasium of Glendale Elementary. The space had been transformed into a showcase of innovation, with students from elementary to high school presenting projects that ranged from simple apps to complex robotics. As he moved through the crowd, Marcus was struck by the energy and enthusiasm that filled the room. Parents beamed with pride as their children explained complex coding concepts. Local business owners engaged in animated discussions with young entrepreneurs about potential partnerships. In one corner, he spotted Lily, now a poised young teenager demonstrating a virtual reality program she had developed to teach empathy and conflict resolution. A group of wide-eyed younger students watched in awe as she guided them through the experience. "Mr. Marcus," Lily exclaimed when she saw him rushing over for a hug. "I'm so glad you could make it. Did you see the VR program? I used some of the techniques we learned in the advanced coding workshop you sponsored." Marcus smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "It's incredible, Lily. You've come so far. I remember when you were just learning your first lines of code." Lily's expression grew serious. "I never would have had the chance without you and Reinhardt Technologies. AO changed everything for us." Before Marcus could respond, they were interrupted by Sarah Chen, who approached with a group of visitors in tow. "Marcus, I'm so glad you're here. These are representatives from the mayor's office. They're interested in expanding our innovation hub model to other parts of the city." As Marcus engaged with the officials, explaining the principles behind their community partnership approach, he could see the excitement growing in their eyes. They peppered him with questions about implementation, funding, and potential outcomes. "The key," Marcus explained, "is to view it not as charity but as a genuine partnership. The community isn't just a recipient of aid. They're active participants in the innovation process. Their insights, their experiences, these are invaluable resources that drive real progress." As the conversation continued, Marcus noticed a commotion near the entrance of the gymnasium. A group of people with cameras and microphones had arrived, a news crew from a national network. Sarah leaned in, whispering in Marcus's ear. "They're here to do a feature story on the Reinhardt Revolution, as they're calling it. They want to interview you and some of the students." For a moment, Marcus felt a flicker of his old discomfort with the spotlight. But then he looked around the room, at the students proudly displaying their projects, at the parents and community members engaged in excited discussions about the future. He realized that this wasn't about him anymore. It was about something much bigger. As the reporter approached, microphone in hand, Marcus made a split-second decision. "Actually," he said, gesturing to Lily and a group of other students nearby, "I think you should interview these young innovators. They're the real story here." The next hour was a blur of activity as students, parents, and community leaders shared their experiences with the news crew. Marcus watched from the sidelines, his heart swelling with pride and a profound sense of purpose. As the event wound down, Marcus found himself back in the quiet of the school hallway, looking at the murals and project displays that lined the walls. Each one was a testament to the transformation that had taken place here, a transformation that was now spreading far beyond the boundaries of this one community. He felt a presence beside him and turned to see Principal Hoffman, a warm smile on his face. "You know, Marcus," the older man said, "when you first came here with your big ideas, I thought you were just another corporate type looking for some good PR. I've never been so happy to be proven wrong." Marcus chuckled. To be honest, I don't think I fully understood what I was starting either. But seeing all of this, he gestured to the bustling gymnasium behind them, it's beyond anything I could have imagined. Principal Hoffman nodded, his eyes twinkling. You've started something remarkable here, Marcus, but I have a feeling this is just the beginning. As Marcus left the school that evening, his mind was already racing with new ideas, new possibilities. The invitation to Davos, the interest from other companies, the expanding network of innovation hubs, all of these were opportunities to spread the ripples of change even further. He thought about the speech he would give, the message he wanted to share with the world's business leaders. It wasn't just about corporate social responsibility or feel-good initiatives. It was about fundamentally reimagining the relationship between business and society, about harnessing the power of commerce and innovation to create a more equitable, sustainable future for all. As he drove home, the city lights twinkling around him, Marcus felt a profound sense of purpose. The journey that had begun with a chance encounter in a supermarket had led him here, to the cusp of a global movement. And while the challenges ahead were daunting, he knew that he wasn't facing them alone. He had a community behind him, a growing global community of innovators, dreamers, and changemakers. The future, he realized, was not something to be predicted or feared. It was something to be shaped, to be created together. And with that thought, Marcus Reinhardt drove on into the night, ready to face whatever challenges and opportunities tomorrow might bring. The World Economic Forum in Davos was a far cry from the humble halls of Glendale Elementary. Snow-capped mountains loomed in the background as world leaders, corporate titans, and influential thinkers gathered to discuss the future of the global economy. Among them, Marcus Reinhardt stood out, not for his wealth or power, but for the revolutionary ideas he brought to the table. As Marcus took the stage for his keynote address, he felt a moment of vertigo. How had the journey that began with a stolen loaf of bread led him here? He took a deep breath, centering himself, and began to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand at a crossroads. The old model of capitalism, one that prioritizes profit above all else, is failing us. It's failing our communities, our planet, and ultimately, it's failing businesses themselves. But there is another way. For the next hour, Marcus laid out the Reinhardt model of compassionate capitalism. He spoke of innovation hubs in underserved communities, of partnerships that elevated local voices, of technology that served the greater good. But more than that, he spoke of a fundamental shift in how businesses could view their role in society. Imagine a world, he said, his voice rising with passion, where every company sees itself not as separate from the community, but as an integral part of it, where success is measured not just in dollars and cents, but in lives improved, in potential unlocked, in futures brightened. As he concluded his speech, the room erupted in applause. Marcus could see nods of agreement, people leaning in to discuss with their neighbors, phones coming out to take notes or send messages. He had struck a chord. The days that followed were a whirlwind of meetings, interviews, and discussions. Business leaders sought him out, eager to learn more about implementing similar models in their own companies. Policymakers wanted to discuss how governments could support and encourage this new approach to business. But even as Marcus engaged on this global stage, his thoughts often drifted back to Glendale. He made sure to set aside time each day to video call with Sarah Chen, getting updates on the latest developments in their original innovation hub. It was during one of these calls that Sarah shared some exciting news. Marcus, you won't believe this. Remember that app Lily and her team developed for conflict resolution? A major education technology company wants to license it for nationwide distribution. Marcus felt a surge of pride. That's incredible, Sarah. Make sure Lily and her team are properly credited and compensated. This could be a game changer for them. As the forum came to a close, Marcus found himself in a private meeting with a group of tech CEOs and venture capitalists. They were proposing the creation of a global fund to support community-based innovation initiatives modeled after Reinhardt's approach. Mr. Reinhardt, one of the VCs, said, "We're prepared to commit significant resources to this fund. But we want you to lead it. Your vision, your experience, they're crucial to making this work on a global scale." Marcus felt a moment of temptation. The opportunity to expand their model worldwide, to have an impact on a truly global scale. It was everything he had been working towards. But something held him back. "I'm honored by your offer," he said carefully, "and I fully support the creation of this fund. But I think my place is back home, with Reinhardt Technologies and our original community partners. They're the heart of what we do, and I can't lose touch with that." The CEOs exchanged glances, clearly surprised by his response, but surely, one of them pressed, "You could oversee both? Your company is stable now, and this fund could be your legacy." Marcus shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips. "My legacy isn't something that can be contained in a fund or a company. It's in the lives we touch, the communities we help transform. I need to stay connected to that, to keep learning and growing alongside them." As he left the meeting, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had come to Davos to spread a message, to plant seeds of change in the highest echelons of global business. But in doing so, he had also reaffirmed his own commitment to the grassroots work that had started it all. On his last night in Davos, Marcus found a quiet moment to call Lily. Her excited voice filled him with warmth as she updated him on her latest projects and the buzz around her app's potential distribution deal. "Mr. Marcus," she said, her tone growing serious, "I saw clips of your speech online. You talked about me, about all of us here. You really think we're changing the world?" Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. "Lily, you are changing the world. Every line of code you write, every problem you solve, every person you inspire, it all creates ripples that spread far beyond what you can see. Never doubt the impact you're having." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and when Lily spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. "Thank you, Mr. Marcus, for everything. We'll make you proud. I promise." As Marcus boarded his flight home the next morning, his mind was already racing with new ideas and plans. The connections he had made in Davos, the global interest in their model, these were all tools they could use to amplify their impact. But more than that, he was eager to get back to Glendale, to roll up his sleeves and dive back into the day-to-day work of community engagement and innovation. He realized that this balance between global vision and local action, between big-picture strategy and on-the-ground implementation, was crucial to their continued success. The plane took off, soaring above the Swiss Alps. As he watched the snowy peaks recede, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From a desperate child stealing bread to feed his family, to a titan of industry addressing world leaders, it was a path he could never have imagined. But the most important part of that journey, he realized, wasn't the destinations he had reached. It was the people he had met along the way, the lives that had intertwined with his own. Sarah Chen, with her unwavering dedication to her community. Principal Hoffman, who had taken a chance on a radical new idea. Richard, his steadfast friend and partner through all the ups and downs. And Lily, bright, determined Lily, who reminded him so much of himself at that age. In her, Marcus saw the future, not just of Reinhardt Technologies or their community initiatives, but of a whole new generation poised to tackle the world's challenges with compassion, creativity, and technological savvy. As the plane leveled off above the clouds, Marcus opened his laptop. He had promised to send Lily some feedback on her latest project proposal, and he wanted to do that before diving into the mountain of follow-ups from Davos. In that moment, balancing the global and the local, the visionary and the practical, Marcus felt a profound sense of purpose. The path ahead was not without its challenges, but he knew that together, with his team, his community, and the growing network of like-minded innovators around the world, they could face whatever came their way. The future they were building, step by step and day by day, was bigger than any one person or company. It was a future where business and community worked hand in hand, where technology served humanity's highest aspirations, and where every individual had the opportunity to reach their full potential. As the first draft of his email to Lily took shape on the screen, Marcus smiled to himself. The journey that had begun with a stolen loaf of bread had led him here, to a place where he could help ensure that no child would ever have to make that desperate choice again, and that, he realized, was the truest measure of success. The years seemed to fly by in a whirlwind of progress and change, and Reinhardt Technologies had become more than just a successful company. It was now the centerpiece of a global movement. The model of compassionate capitalism that Marcus had championed had spread far beyond the tech industry, influencing businesses across sectors and around the world. On a warm spring morning, Marcus found himself once again walking the halls of Glendale Elementary. The school had undergone a remarkable transformation over the years, with state-of-the-art technology seamlessly integrated into every classroom. But it wasn't just the physical changes that struck Marcus, it was the palpable sense of hope and possibility that filled the air. As he approached the auditorium, he could hear the excited chatter of students and the hum of anticipation. Today was a special day, the graduation ceremony for the first cohort of students from the Reinhardt Future Leaders program, an intensive mentorship and education initiative that had grown out of their early community partnerships. Marcus slipped into the back of the auditorium, not wanting to draw attention to himself. On stage, he saw Sarah Chen, now the Director of Community Partnerships for Reinhardt Technologies, preparing to address the graduates. Her hair was streaked with grey now, but her eyes still sparkled with the same passion and determination he had first seen years ago. "Good morning, everyone," Sarah began, her voice filled with pride. "Today we celebrate not just the achievements of these remarkable young people, but the power of community, the importance of opportunity, and the transformative potential of technology when guided by compassion and purpose." As Sarah spoke, Marcus's eyes scanned the rows of graduates. Each face told a story of obstacles overcome, of potential realized. These were young people who had grown up in the shadow of poverty and limited opportunities, but who now stood on the cusp of bright futures in tech, entrepreneurship, and community leadership. His gaze settled on one particular graduate, and his heart swelled with emotion. Lily Chen, no longer the small girl stealing bread, but a poised young woman ready to take on the world. She sat straight-backed in her chair, her eyes shining with a mix of excitement and determination. As the ceremony progressed, Marcus listened to speeches from community leaders, educators, and industry partners. Each one spoke of the profound impact the Reinhardt initiatives had had on their lives and their community. But it was Lily's valedictory address that truly captured the essence of what they had all been working towards. Lily took the stage, her voice clear and confident. "When I was 7 years old, I thought my future was limited to what I could see in my neighborhood. Today I stand here knowing that the world is open to me and to all of us. But more importantly, I stand here knowing that we have the power to shape that world, to make it better not just for ourselves but for everyone." She went on to speak about the projects she and her classmates had developed, apps that addressed local health issues, AI systems designed to optimize resource distribution in underserved areas, renewable energy solutions tailored for urban environments. Each initiative was a testament to the power of technology, guided by a deep understanding of community needs. "We've learned that true innovation doesn't come from isolation, but from collaboration," Lily continued. "It comes from understanding the real problems people face and working alongside them to find solutions. The skills we've gained here aren't just about coding or engineering, they're about empathy, creativity, and the belief that we can make a difference." As Lily concluded her speech, the auditorium erupted in applause. Marcus found himself on his feet, clapping until his hands hurt, tears pricking at the corners of his eyes. This, he realized, was the true fruition of the seeds they had planted all those years ago. After the ceremony, as proud families and community members mingled with the graduates, Marcus made his way through the crowd to find Lily. When she saw him, her face lit up with a bright smile. "Mr. Marcus, I'm so glad you could make it," she exclaimed, pulling him into a warm hug. "I wouldn't have missed it for the world, Lily," Marcus replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Your speech was incredible. You've come so far." Lily's expression grew serious. "We all have, thanks to you. You changed everything for us, Mr. Marcus." Marcus shook his head, a gentle smile on his face. "No, Lily, you all changed everything. I just helped create the opportunity. You and every student here, you're the ones who seized it and ran with it. You're the ones who are going to change the world." As they chatted, Marcus couldn't help but marvel at the young woman before him. Lily had already been accepted into a top university's computer science program with a full scholarship. But more than that, she had plans to start a tech incubator in her old neighborhood to help other young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds. "You know," Lily said, a hint of mischief in her eyes, "I've been thinking about your job, Mr. Marcus. I think in a few years I might just come for it." Marcus laughed, a full, hearty laugh that came from deep in his chest. "I look forward to it, Lily. I can't think of anyone better to lead Reinhardt Technologies into the future. As the festivities wound down, Marcus found a quiet moment with Sarah. They stood together, watching the graduates posing for photos and making plans for celebratory dinners. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Sarah asked, her voice soft with wonder. Marcus shook his head. "Never in my wildest dreams. But seeing all of this, seeing Lily and all these amazing young people, it makes me realize that we've only scratched the surface of what's possible." Sarah nodded, a determined glint in her eye. "So, what's next? Where do we go from here?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, his mind racing with possibilities. "You know," he said finally, "I think it's time we started thinking about succession planning, not just for Reinhardt Technologies, but for this whole movement we've created." Sarah looked at him, surprise evident on her face. "You're not thinking of stepping down, are you?" Marcus smiled. "Not immediately, no, but looking at Lily, at all these graduates, I realize that the future belongs to them. Our job now is to make sure they're ready to take the reins when the time comes." As they left the school that day, Marcus felt a profound sense of both accomplishment and anticipation. The work they had done had changed countless lives, had reshaped the very nature of business and community engagement. But he knew that the greatest achievements, the most profound changes, were yet to come. The next generation, exemplified by Lily and her peers, was poised to take the principles of compassionate capitalism to heights he could only imagine. They would face new challenges, seize new opportunities, and push the boundaries of what was possible in ways that would continue to transform the world. As Marcus drove home, the setting sun painting the sky in brilliant hues, he felt a deep sense of peace. The journey that had begun with a desperate act in a supermarket had led to this moment, to a future bright with promise and possibility. And though there would always be more work to do, more lives to touch, more change to effect, he knew that the legacy he and his team had built would endure and grow in the capable hands of the next generation. The road ahead was wide open, filled with potential and hope. And Marcus Reinhardt, once a boy with nothing but dreams and determination, now a man who had reshaped the very fabric of business and society, was excited to see where it would lead. The sprawling campus of Reinhardt Technologies buzzed with an energy that was palpable even from a distance. As Marcus's car pulled up to the main entrance, he could see groups of employees engaged in animated discussions, their excitement evident in their gestures and expressions. Today was no ordinary day. It marked the 20th anniversary of the company's pivotal shift towards compassionate capitalism, and the air was thick with anticipation for the day's events. But for Marcus, there was an additional layer of significance to this day, one that only a select few were privy to. As he made his way through the corridors, employees stopped to greet him, their faces beaming with respect and admiration. Marcus returned their greetings warmly, marveling at how much had changed over the years. The company had grown exponentially, but it had never lost the sense of purpose and community that had become its hallmark. He reached the conference room where the board was already assembled. Richard, his hair now completely silver, stood as Marcus entered. "Ready for this, old friend?" he asked, a mix of emotion in his voice. Marcus nodded, feeling a flutter of nervousness in his stomach. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied with a small smile. The board meeting began with the usual reports and updates, but there was an undercurrent of anticipation running through the proceedings. Finally, as the last item on the agenda was concluded, Marcus cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment, 20 years ago we embarked on a journey that many thought was impossible. We set out to prove that a company could be both profitable and socially responsible, that technology could be a force for positive change in the world. He paused, looking around the table at the faces of those who had been with him on this journey. "Today, I can say with confidence that we have succeeded beyond our wildest dreams. Reinhardt Technologies is not just a leader in innovation, but a beacon of hope for communities around the world." The board members nodded in agreement, some wiping away tears as they remembered the challenges and triumphs of the past 2 decades. "But," Marcus continued, "every journey must eventually come to an end, or at least enter a new phase. Which is why today I am announcing my intention to step down as CEO of Reinhardt Technologies. Despite the fact that many had suspected this was coming, there was still an audible gasp in the room. Marcus held up his hand, smiling gently. "Don't worry, I'm not abandoning ship. I'll be transitioning to the role of chairman of the board, focusing on our global initiatives and mentoring the next generation of leaders. But it's time for fresh eyes and new energy to take the helm of day-to-day operations." He turned to Richard, who nodded encouragingly. "And I'm pleased to announce that after an extensive search and evaluation process, the board has unanimously chosen our new CEO, someone who embodies the spirit of Reinhardt Technologies, who understands our mission to the core, and who has the vision and drive to take us into the future." Marcus pressed a button, and the large screen at the end of the room flickered to life. A familiar face appeared, causing several board members to break into wide smiles. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to introduce the next CEO of Reinhardt Technologies, Lily Chen." Lily's image smiled at them from the screen, poised and confident. In the years since her graduation, she had become a rising star in the tech world, founding her own successful startup before returning to Reinhardt as head of their innovation division. Her journey from a child in a struggling community to the leader of a global tech giant was a testament to the very principles Reinhardt Technologies stood for. As Marcus outlined the transition plan, he could see the mix of emotions on the faces around him: pride, excitement, and a touch of nostalgia. This was more than a change in leadership. It was the dawn of a new era for Reinhardt Technologies. The rest of the day was a whirlwind of activity. The announcement was made public, setting off a flurry of media attention and speculation. Marcus found himself moving from interview to interview, reflecting on the past and sharing his vision for the future. But it was the company-wide gathering in the afternoon that truly captured the spirit of the day. Employees from all levels of the organization packed into the main auditorium, with thousands more watching via live stream from Reinhardt offices and community centers around the world. As Marcus took the stage, the applause was deafening. He raised his hands, waiting for the crowd to quiet down, feeling a lump form in his throat at the outpouring of affection. 20 years ago, he began, his voice carrying across the hushed auditorium. "I stood before a much smaller group of employees and shared a vision of a company that could change the world, not just through technology, but through compassion, through community engagement, through a fundamental reimagining of what business could be." He paused, looking out at the sea of faces before him. "You pushed boundaries, you challenged conventions, you showed the world that profit and purpose are not mutually exclusive." Marcus went on to highlight some of the company's major achievements: the network of innovation hubs that had revitalized communities around the world, the breakthrough technologies that had emerged from their collaborative approach, the shifts in corporate culture that Reinhardt had inspired across industries. All of you took that vision and made it a reality. But as proud as I am of what we've accomplished," he continued, "I'm even more excited about what lies ahead, which is why today I'm not just announcing my transition to a new role, I'm also announcing the launch of the Reinhardt Future Fund." A murmur of interest rippled through the crowd. "This fund, seeded with $1 billion from my personal fortune, will be dedicated to supporting the next generation of socially conscious innovators. It will provide grants, mentorship, and resources to young entrepreneurs and community leaders who share our vision of technology as a force for good." The announcement was met with thunderous applause. As it died down, Marcus smiled, a twinkle in his eye. "And to lead this initiative, to shape the future of Reinhardt's impact on the world, I can think of no one better than the woman who has been with us from the very beginning, who has lived the transformation we seek to create. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the new CEO of Reinhardt Technologies and the head of the Reinhardt Future Fund, Lily Chen." The crowd erupted as Lily walked onto the stage, embracing Marcus in a warm hug before turning to address the audience. As Marcus stepped back, watching Lily captivate the crowd with her vision for the future, he felt a profound sense of completion. The journey that had begun with a desperate act in a supermarket had led to this moment, a moment of transition, of passing the torch to a new generation. But more than that, it was a moment of continuity, of seeing the values and principles he had fought for take root and flourish. As Lily's voice filled the auditorium, outlining bold new initiatives and reaffirming Reinhardt's commitment to compassionate capitalism, Marcus knew that the company and the movement it had spawned was in good hands. The winds of change were blowing, but they were winds that carried with them the seeds of hope, innovation and compassion that had been planted 2 decades ago. And as Marcus looked out at the bright faces of the Reinhardt family, he knew that the best was yet to come. The sun was setting over the city skyline as Marcus stood at the window of his office, boxes packed and ready for moving. After 2 decades at the helm of Reinhardt Technologies, this was his last day as CEO. The view before him was a testament to the changes he had helped bring about, not just in the gleaming towers of the business district, but in the revitalized neighborhoods beyond, where community innovation hubs buzzed with activity even as night fell. A knock at the door roused him from his reverie. It was Lily, looking both excited and slightly overwhelmed in her new role as CEO. "Mr. Reinhardt, do you have a moment?" she asked, a touch of the old shyness in her voice despite her newfound authority. Marcus smiled warmly. "Lily, I think it's about time you started calling me Marcus. And for you, I always have a moment." Lily entered the office, her eyes taking in the bare walls and packed boxes. "It feels strange," she admitted, "seeing this office like this, knowing that tomorrow it'll be mine." Marcus nodded understandingly. "I felt the same way when I first took over this office. But you know, Lily, it's not about the office. It's about what you do with the power and responsibility that come with it." Lily's expression grew serious. "That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. I've been thinking about my first major initiative as CEO, and I wanted to get your thoughts." As Lily outlined her plan, an ambitious project to create a network of sustainable, tech-enabled communities in some of the world's most impoverished areas, Marcus felt a surge of pride. This was everything he had hoped for when he chose Lily as his successor. "It's brilliant, Lily," he said when she had finished. "It takes everything we've learned over the past 20 years and applies it on a global scale. But more than that, it stays true to our core mission, using technology to empower communities and create real, lasting change." Lily beamed at the praise, but then her expression turned thoughtful. "You know, none of this would have been possible without you, without what you did for me and my mom all those years ago." Marcus shook his head, a gentle smile on his face. "I may have opened a door, Lily, but you're the one who walked through it. You and all the other bright young minds we've had the privilege of working with. You're the ones who are going to change the world." As they continued to chat, reminiscing about the past and speculating about the future, Marcus felt a profound sense of coming full circle. From that fateful day in the supermarket to this moment of transition, it had been a journey beyond anything he could have imagined. Their conversation was interrupted by another knock at the door. It was Sarah Chen, now the Director of Global Community Partnerships for Reinhardt Technologies. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, her eyes twinkling. "But there's something you both need to see." Sarah led them down to the main lobby of the Reinhardt building. As they stepped off the elevator, Marcus and Lily were met with an astonishing sight. The entire lobby was filled with people, employees, community partners, students from their education programs, all holding candles and beaming with emotion. At the center of the crowd stood Richard, his face creased in a wide smile. "We couldn't let you leave without a proper send-off, old friend," he said to Marcus. As Marcus made his way through the crowd, people reached out to shake his hand, to offer words of thanks and congratulations. He saw faces from every phase of Reinhardt's journey, board members who had taken a chance on his vision, engineers who had developed world-changing technologies, community leaders who had partnered with them to create local innovation hubs. When he reached the center of the lobby, Richard handed him a microphone. Marcus looked out at the sea of faces, feeling overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and respect. 20 years ago, he began, his voice thick with emotion, "I had a dream of a different kind of company. A company that could be a force for good in the world, that could use its power and resources to lift up communities, to create opportunities where none existed before." He paused, looking around at the diverse faces before him. "But what we've built together is so much more than that. We've created a movement, a new way of thinking about the role of business in society. And as I look out at all of you tonight, I know that this movement will continue to grow and thrive long after I'm gone." Marcus turned to Lily, who stood beside him with tears in her eyes. Lily Chen represents everything we've been working towards: a brilliant mind, a compassionate heart, and a deep understanding of the communities we serve. Under her leadership, I have no doubt that Reinhardt Technologies will reach new heights and touch even more lives. As the crowd applauded, Marcus felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to see a group of students from the latest cohort of the Reinhardt Future Leaders program. One of them, a young girl with bright eyes and a determined set to her jaw, stepped forward. "Mr. Reinhardt," she said, her voice clear and confident despite her youth, "we wanted to thank you for everything you've done. You showed us that we can dream big, that we can use technology to make a difference in our communities." She handed Marcus a small, wrapped package. As he opened it, he found a framed photo of the students working in one of the community innovation hubs. Inscribed on the frame were the words, "To the man who taught us to code, to care, and to change the world." Marcus felt tears welling up in his eyes as he looked at the photo, then back at the young faces before him. In them, he saw echoes of Lily, of himself as a young man full of dreams and determination. "Thank you," he said softly. "But remember, the future belongs to you now. Take what we've built and make it better. Dream bigger, reach further. Never stop believing in the power of technology to create positive change." As the evening wound down, Marcus found himself back in his office with Lily and Sarah. The three of them stood at the window looking out at the city lights. "So," Sarah said, a hint of mischief in her voice, "what's next for Marcus Reinhardt? Surely you're not planning to just sit back and relax?" Marcus chuckled. "Not a chance. I may be stepping down as CEO, but I'm not stepping away from our mission. The Reinhardt Future Fund is just the beginning. There's still so much work to be done, so many lives to touch." Lily nodded, her expression determined. "And we'll be right there with you every step of the way." The next chapter of Reinhardt Technologies is going to be amazing. As they stood there looking out at the city they had helped transform, Marcus felt a profound sense of peace. The journey that had begun with a desperate act in a supermarket had led to this moment. A moment of transition, of passing the torch to a new generation. But more than that, it was a moment of continuity, of seeing the values and principles he had fought for take root and flourish. The future stretched out before them, full of challenges and opportunities. But as Marcus looked at Lily and Sarah, at the bright young faces he had seen in the lobby, he knew that the dream of compassionate capitalism was in good hands. The circle was complete, but the story was far from over. It was, in many ways, just beginning, and Marcus Reinhardt, no longer a CEO but forever a visionary, couldn't wait to see what the next chapter would bring. 5 years had passed since Marcus Reinhardt had stepped down as CEO of Reinhardt Technologies. The company, under Lily Chen's leadership, had continued to grow and evolve, pushing the boundaries of what was possible when technology and social responsibility worked hand in hand. On a crisp autumn morning, Marcus found himself once again standing in front of Glendale Elementary School. The building had changed over the years, modernized and expanded, but it still held a special place in his heart. This was where it had all begun, where a chance encounter had set in motion a chain of events that would change countless lives. As he walked through the doors, Marcus was greeted by a holographic display in the lobby, showcasing student projects and community initiatives. He couldn't help but smile at the sight of young faces beaming with pride as they explained their innovations to virtual visitors from around the world. Sarah Chen met him in the hallway, her hair now streaked with silver, but her eyes still bright with enthusiasm. "Ready for this, Marcus?" she asked, linking her arm through his. Marcus nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and nostalgia. "As ready as I'll ever be." They made their way to the school's auditorium, now a state-of-the-art facility that doubled as a community innovation hub. The room was packed with students, teachers, community members, and even a few journalists. At the center of the stage stood a veiled object, the focus of today's gathering. As Marcus took his seat in the front row, he saw familiar faces all around him. Richard, looking distinguished in his retirement. Lily, taking a rare day away from her CEO duties to be here. Even Elizabeth Thornton, the once skeptical board member who had become one of their staunchest allies. Principal Hoffman, now in his final year before retirement, took the stage. "Good morning, everyone," he began, his voice carrying easily through the advanced sound system. "We're gathered here today to unveil a very special addition to our school, one that honors a man who changed not just Glendale Elementary, but our entire community and beyond." He gestured to the veiled object. "But before we do that, I'd like to invite the man himself to say a few words." Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Marcus Reinhardt. The applause was thunderous as Marcus made his way to the stage. As he looked out at the sea of faces, he felt overwhelmed by the journey that had brought him to this moment. "Thank you," he began, his voice steady despite the emotion he felt. "You know, when I first came to Glendale Elementary all those years ago, I thought I was here to help. What I didn't realize was how much this community would end up helping me." Marcus went on to speak about the early days of their initiatives, the challenges they had faced, and the incredible transformations they had witnessed. He spoke of Lily's journey from a struggling student to a global tech leader, of the countless innovations that had emerged from their community programs, of the ripple effects that had spread far beyond Glendale. "But what I'm most proud of," he continued, his voice growing passionate, "is not the technologies we've developed or the profits we've made. It's the change we've seen in how people think about the role of business in society. We've shown that compassion and capitalism can not only coexist, but thrive together." As Marcus concluded his speech, he turned to the veiled object. "And now it gives me great pleasure to unveil the newest addition to Glendale Elementary, a symbol of our ongoing commitment to this community and to the principles of compassionate capitalism." With a nod from Principal Hoffman, Marcus pulled away the veil. There, gleaming in the spotlight, stood a sleek interactive kiosk. Its screen came to life, displaying a timeline of the school's transformation and the global impact of the Reinhardt initiatives. "This kiosk," Marcus explained, "is connected to a network of similar installations in schools and community centers around the world. It will allow our students to collaborate on projects with peers across the globe, to share ideas and innovations, and to continue pushing the boundaries of what's possible when we work together." The audience erupted in applause and cheers. As Marcus stepped back, he saw tears in the eyes of many, tears of joy, of pride, of hope for the future. The rest of the ceremony was a blur of demonstrations, speeches, and heartfelt thank yous. Students showcased projects they had developed using the new kiosk, from environmental monitoring systems to peer-to-peer tutoring platforms. As the event wound down, Marcus found a quiet moment alone with the kiosk. He scrolled through the timeline, marveling at how far they had come. From a desperate child stealing bread to feed his family, to a global movement that was reshaping the very nature of business and social responsibility. He felt a presence beside him and turned to see Lily, a warm smile on her face. "Pretty amazing, isn't it?" she said, gesturing to the kiosk. "Sometimes I still can't believe how much has changed." Marcus nodded, feeling a lump form in his throat. "It's more than I ever could have dreamed," he admitted. "But you know, Lily, the real magic isn't in the technology. It's in the people, in you, in every student and teacher and community member who believed in this vision and worked to make it a reality." Lily's eyes shone with emotion. "We all stand on your shoulders, Marcus. You showed us what was possible." As they stood there, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point, a group of students approached. One of them, a young girl with bright eyes and a determined set to her jaw, stepped forward. "Mr. Reinhardt, Ms. Chen," she said, her voice clear and confident, "we wanted to show you our latest project. We've been using the kiosk to develop a platform that connects elderly residents in our community with students who can help them with technology and day-to-day tasks." As the students excitedly explained their project, Marcus felt a profound sense of continuity. Here was the next generation, taking the tools and opportunities they had been given and using them to create positive change in their community. Later that evening, as Marcus sat in his study at home, he reflected on the day's events. On his desk sat a framed photo from the ceremony, himself and Lily surrounded by beaming students, with the kiosk glowing in the background. Next to it was the old faded drawing Lily had given him all those years ago, the one he had kept close to his heart through every challenge and triumph. He picked up a pen and opened his journal, feeling compelled to capture his thoughts. As he wrote, he realized that this wasn't just an ending, but a new beginning. The legacy he had helped build wasn't set in stone. It was a living, growing thing, carried forward by each new generation of innovators and dreamers. Marcus Reinhardt had started his journey as a boy stealing bread to survive. He had built a tech empire, revolutionized the concept of corporate social responsibility, and touched countless lives along the way. But as he sat there, penning his thoughts, he knew that his greatest achievement wasn't measured in dollars or accolades. It was measured in the light of hope he saw in young eyes, in the communities transformed and lives uplifted, in the ripple effects of compassion and innovation that would continue long after he was gone. As he finished writing, Marcus closed his journal with a sense of deep contentment. The future was in good hands, and though there would always be challenges to face and new horizons to explore, he knew that the dream of compassionate capitalism would live on, growing and evolving with each passing year. Marcus Reinhardt's story might have reached its final chapter, but the legacy of hope he had created was just beginning its next act. And that, he realized, was the greatest success of all.